3, 2, and 1. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Renaissance Cleveland Hotel in downtown Cleveland. It is the 2020 Greater Cleveland Sports Awards right here on WKYC.com. We're also on the WKYC app, our 3 News app, Facebook Live, and on YouTube. To my right is Nick Camino. To my left, Ben Axelrod. I'm Dave DeNatale. We will be your hosts, if you will, for what will be a parade of stars tonight, as it's the 2020 Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. Ben, this is, I think, our 3rd year doing this together, and
yes.
It's always fun. It's kind of like, I always think it's like a family reunion. You have a chance to, see current sports stars, executives, beat the new Browns head coach, and
a tradition unlike any other,
and see some legends as well.
Yeah, definitely, and this is kind of one of those banner events where you can kind of put a flag in the sand and say this is where are we? 2020? 2020. It's 2020, and this is the state of Cleveland sports in 2020 here on January 22nd, 2020. Last year we were meeting Freddie Kitchens, and we were talking about the Cavs recovering from LeBron leaving and all the optimism we had with the Browns. And this year we have some optimism to look forward to, but also, a lot in 2019 to look back on and reflect on. But, this is just, kind of one of those cool moments where kind of a slower part of the calendar and as far as sports go, and we get to celebrate Cleveland sports.
Yeah, Nick, I know you, as we were all kind of gathering in here, you had a chance to say hi to a lot of sports stars. You were tweeting out. I mean, Bernie Kosar's here, Mark Price is here, and it's for whatever generation you are. You can sit there and you go, if you're young, Colin Sexton's here, TJ Carey's here. If you're, Stipe Miocic is here. If you're in your 40s like me, Mark Price is here, and Bernie Kosar's here, and it celebrates what we love about Cleveland sports. And outside of our area, we take our knocks, but there's a lot of pride in what this town and what this area produces. High school, college, and certainly the pros.
Yeah, no, this is a great event. The Greater Cleveland Sports Commission does an unbelievable job every year putting this on. I know you've been to a number of these. I've been to a number. Ben has been to a lot of these. They do such a great job, and I think I don't know that you can do an event like this if you don't have the backing of the 3 pro sports teams. And I think the Indians, Cavs, and Browns do such a great job. And another cool thing about these evenings is it's not just about the current stuff. It's about some of the older guys, too, that are around. And you've got college athletes. You've got some high school athletes. We've seen Mount Union before get acknowledged for things, and local kids that have gone on to play in college that are winning high school awards. Really cool. I remember last year talking to a young gal who was playing at the University of Michigan, and
she's a nominee. She's a nominee.
Yeah, a nominee again. Yeah, I mean, it's so there's just been there's some great athletes that you can spotlight. There's some great stories that you can tell. There have been over the years some lean years where we've kind of looked back and said, boy, what are we going to talk about here tonight? But the one that sticks out to me is when we sat here in January of 2017, coming off of the Cavs championship, coming off of the Indians going to Game 7 of the World Series. I think the Browns were 1-15 that year, but there was, that was a special year, and they're different every year. But it's great to be a part of. I'm glad we're here.
This year's awards being emceed by ESPN Radio is Mike Golick, of course, the pride of St. Joseph's High School, Notre Dame in the NFL. And Ben, I hope you had a chance to see Ben's interview with Mike Golick.
Oh, cool.
And it meant a lot to him to be asked to come back here to be a part of this. And he really wears being from Northeast Ohio is a badge of honor.
No doubt about it. And obviously, as the host of the biggest sports talk show in America for now 20 years, they go on the road. They'll be in Miami next week. They're all over the place. And whether it's the World Series, the All-Star Game, the NBA Finals, they've come back here a handful of times.
Yep.
You can tell that even just listening on the radio or watching the simulcast on TV, that just how much being back here means to him and how much he enjoys being here. I asked him, what's this like? Like, this must be a dream for a kid from Willowick, Ohio. And he said it's home. It's home. It's this is where I'm from, and obviously, like you said, he kind of wears it on his sleeve, and more times, that's a detriment for him, I would imagine, but he's really proud of this place, and I was asking him, like, how's tonight going to be different, and he said, I'm not only going to talk to the presenters and the award winners, I'm going to talk to them about their stories from Cleveland and being from Cleveland and their own connections to the city. So if you have a chance to check out any of the highlights from tonight, I think that would be a really cool part of it.
Yeah, it means a lot. I just think about our colleague Jay Crawford a couple of years ago. He was the MC here.
That's right.
And, when he was still at ESPN and be interested. He said he would try. He's going to be busy. He's a presenter tonight, but Jay said he'd try to pop by, and I'd be interested to know kind of what those butterfly. I mean, we're on the air. We do this thing, and it's fun. But to be the MC of an award, it's not like the Cleveland version of like the Emmys or something. It's got to be a little nerve-wracking. It's a little different than being on the air.
Yeah, you got to be reflective. You got to probably have some stories, tell some jokes, kind of like the Emmys a little bit. Get people going.
Get the monologue out.
Yeah, get the monologue out of the way. But I think in those instances, they try to tell you, keep it moving. Just keep. People got work tomorrow. Keep it moving. You got dinner here.
Well, that was one of the first things he said to me. He said that the best part is I'm in control.
Yeah,
this thing can go long or it can go quick.
That's true.
I said, well, what are we thinking? He said it's going to be a quick one.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, that's an important part of it. Just keep it moving. That's what they tell you. So. That's pretty cool, though. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So Mike Golick's the MC, and his job tonight will be entertainment and keep things moving. And as presenters and award winners make their way backstage to our area, we'll have a chance to catch up with many of them throughout this evening. The Lifetime Achievement Award winner, if you had a chance to see what's new at 5 o'clock on 3 News, it was Paul Dolan with Jay Crawford and the Dolan family tonight being honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award winners presented by Cuyahoga Community College. I'll go to you on this first because you have a long history with the covering the Indians. It's got to be meaningful for them. They've owned now this franchise for about 20 years. They've taken their knocks, but they're still here. The Indians are still relevant, and they also do a lot for the community.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think when you think of this type of award, it's not just what you're doing on the field, and the Indians have been, one of the more consistent teams, especially when you think about the market size that they deal with, and today's landscape of Major League Baseball. They've been able to stay relevant and stay successful. I think over the last 6 years, they have the most wins in the American League. Terry Francona is a big reason for that, but they hired him. I heard from some people that said, well, the front office does a lot. I said, well, okay, well, who hired them? Who pays those people? So, yeah, I mean, from a on-the-field standpoint, I think they've done a great job, especially when you consider the market restraints that they do have. But, yeah, in the community, I mean, Paul and Karen Dolan, they've given back to so much charity, and they've done so much great work, and they're local. And that's not a knock on the Browns or the Cavs, but they're a local family, from Chardon, Ohio, and they've been here, and they've said they would, they've kept the team here, and it's just been great. I think it's a great match, and to have them get this award, especially when you think about Larry, who's getting older. I think he's now 89. I mean, that's really neat.
Well, and it's not only all those things, the charity and all that's incredible. Getting the All-Star game here. I mean, that was a big draw for the city. I'm sure the All-Star game is going to get a lot of recognition tonight as far as what that did for the city, and the Cleveland, the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission obviously played a huge role in making that happen. But so did the Dolans, and also the stadium renovations a few years ago, keeping Progressive Field fresh, up to date, modernized. All that goes into owning a baseball team. It's we hear stuff about the payroll and whatnot, and where they look heading into 2020. There's a lot more that goes into, I think, an owner's legacy than just wins and losses. There's been a lot of wins.
there have been wins, and you're right. When you look at when they hand out the moment of the year and the moments of the year, that All-Star weekend. Yeah.
That was cool.
It was really cool.
The home run derby.
I mean, even if they didn't have the stand-up cancer for Carlos Carrasco, even if Shane Bieber hadn't gotten MVP, it still was going to be memorable. Everybody we talked to down at the Fan Fest at the convention center, you talk to people in MLB, said, boy, this was, Cleveland has it together. This is well organized. This is well run. And that kind of set the tone for what ended up being, you guys were there. It was a magical night at Progressive Field.
Yeah, I mean, no pun intended or pun intended, Cleveland hit a grand slam. Yeah. Like with that All-Star game and All-Star week really is what it became. The home run derby was incredible. The atmosphere was incredible. The fan fest was incredible. And then the All-Star game to have a Cleveland Indians player win MVP in the All-Star game. It was just a cool weekend, and everybody I live in downtown Cleveland. Everybody just felt good about what happened. And not only that, you look back at 2019, I believe that had the announcement of the NBA All-Star Game coming in 2021.
Yes.
Or 2022, the NFL Draft coming in 2021. Yep. I think with what this city did with the MLB All-Star Game last year, I think that just, raises everybody's expectations and builds some confidence into what this city can accomplish with all the big events coming to town in the next couple of years.
It's well deserved, the Dolan, no doubt about it.
So that's that's just kind of an overview of that. But I'm burying the lead a little bit here as we get our coverage started. And I made a joking reference to it, but this has often been over the last 8 years or so one of the first opportunities we have in the media to get to talk to a new Cleveland Browns head coach. I mean,
I've been doing this 3 years now, and this will be my second time.
Number 2.
Second in as many years.
Yes. I mean,
this is my 12th one of these, and I think we've done it 9 times.
I mean, whether it was Pat Shermer, Rob Chudzinski, Hugh Jackson, Mike Pettin, and now Freddie Kitchens. They've all walked through here, and of course now it will be Kevin Stefanski's turn. He will be here later on this evening. We will not get to have him for a one-on-one, but the media in general will get to have a quick powwow with him in a scrum.
Maybe you'll see it on the news tonight or on WKYC.com.
Exactly.
Right? We'll have cameras here.
We'll have our social media platforms, everything. So Kevin Stefanski, this is the guy. I think when the search began and we kind of figured out what the parameters of what the Browns wanted to do and how it was going to be handled and who was going to be kind of spearheading it in Paul DePodesta. I think once we knew that, Nick, I think everybody kind of felt like, look, Kevin Stefanski is going to be a hard guy for the Browns to overlook a second year, and this time around they did not bypass him. They hired him.
And I felt like he was going to be the guy, and then all of a sudden McDaniels spent 7 hours there. Until McDaniels walked out of the building without a contract, I was thinking that, okay, maybe McDaniels is going to be the guy. But then we went back to Stefanski being, I think for the Browns, and Ben would probably echo this too, I think they cared mostly about having the right type of alignment. Mm-hmm. And even if you're not all in on analytics or you're not crazy about the route they're taking on some of this stuff, at least everybody agrees. I felt like last year you had the analytics people and you had some football people under John Dorsey, and there was a clash there.
Yes.
And so I feel like now you at least have a lot of people that are under the same roof that align on a lot of the same things. So that was important to the Browns. And I know we're making the joke about meeting the new Browns coach all the time. There is a part of me that feels a little bit bad that is a knock. It seems like a knock on Kevin Stefanski, and it's not. He should have a fresh, clean slate here. Even though the organization has had 12 head coaches since they've come back, but he should get a clean slate from us to believe he can do this.
Yeah. What's been? That we had one press conference, and we'll see him again tonight. But is this kind of process played itself out to where the Browns decided that Stefanski's the guy, and we don't know exactly who's going to be the general manager, although there may be some clarity on that coming up here in the next 12, 24 hours, maybe a little bit more.
I've got Twitter up.
There you go.
Tweet that.
Ben will have it for us.
I feel like we've had, in the past, we've had little bits of breaking news during these.
We had an NBA trade last year.
Yes, we did. That's right.
The Amon Shumpert, it was a 3-way trade.
Yeah, that's right.
Alec Burks.
That's right. All of a sudden we started writing. Not knowing exactly how this whole thing is going to piece itself together, what have been your thoughts as kind of the Browns have started this process?
Yeah, I agree with Nick. Like, as far as what the Browns said they were going to do in terms of alignment and getting everybody on the same page, Stefanski certainly made the most sense. He aligns from an analytics standpoint with Paul DePodesta, and we still don't know who the GM is, but whether it's George Payton or Andrew Berry, those are both guys who certainly fit in with what the Browns are building. I do think Stefanski almost makes so much sense that it's you almost wonder how much of that big coaching search was just for show.
Right.
How serious that was if this thing wasn't decided.
Well, Haslam said he enjoyed it, right? Is that what he said? He enjoyed the coaching search.
Yeah, I mean, they were basically getting a bunch of consulting sessions with some of the top head coaching candidates around the league. But I do wonder if this was he was the runner-up a year ago, and I wonder if, from all reports are that he was Paul D. Podesta's pick, if this was just Jimmy Haslam turning this thing all over to Paul D. Podesta. But, at the end of the day, they got their guy. I do question why the Browns were the only team that have wanted him over the last 2 years.
I hadn't thought about that as much, yeah.
Because, some of the other guys they talked to, McDaniels, I know he didn't interview, but he was linked to the Panthers and to the Giants as well. And some of the, they interviewed some hotter candidates. And Kevin Stefanski has really only been linked to the Browns the last few years. But, watching his press conference when he got introduced just over a week ago, I don't want to say this one feels different because we've heard that time time again. But
they're undefeated in press conferences.
Well,
maybe not Pat
I've seen
Shermer.
them lose a few.
Maybe not, yeah, Ray Farmer too. Yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Many times.
Winning record in press conferences, I think is fair. But I do agree. He does deserve a fair shake.
Yeah.
We can't hold Hugh Jackson's sins or Freddie
No.
Kitchen's sins or Pat Shermer's sins against him. They don't, and not only because that's unfair to him. It just doesn't matter. Those guys have nothing to do with Kevin Stefanski.
That's right.
Right. The problem is, fans just are so frustrated. They're like, okay, wait a minute. We were supposed to be a playoff team. We were supposed to maybe, there were some who were saying Super Bowl. I don't know if I was at that point, but patience is a hard thing for people to have because you're sitting there now and you're saying, well, we're going to start over again and we're going to do another coach. At least for Kevin Stefanski, unlike some of the other coaches we mentioned, the cupboard in terms of players isn't bare.
No.
They've got players to work with. Now they're going to want to bring in, as we always see sometimes, guys that this regime didn't draft end up going by the wayside. But there is at least a cupboard of talent to work with.
Which to me, even though we said Stefanski gets a fresh slate here, which to me says, you do have to go win now, though. We've seen under this ownership group, even though we got a 5-year contract, they'll pay people as long as they have to. I think that the pressure is on still to go win, though. You've got this talented roster, yet you went 6-10. That's why Stefanski was hired. I think that the expectation is that next year you better be better than 6-10, and people will probably be talking playoffs and trying to get back there for the first time since Joe Thomas's rookie season in 2007. So I do think that
was the last winning record.
Yeah,
the playoffs were 2002.
That's right. Excuse me, the last winning record. Playoffs were 2002.
Yeah,
and so I think that the pressure is on to to go get it done by next year, even though that seems a little bit unfair. That's just the situation here.
I don't think it is unfair. I think this is a win-now job.
Yeah,
and that's why it was open, because it was a win-now job. And I know there were people not buying into the Browns hype last year or who said, okay, let's cool the jets
pump
here.
The brakes a little,
let's pump the brakes. But 6-10 was a disappointing season.
It was.
And it wasn't just 6-10. It was the way they went 6-10, and some of the wins they left out on the field. Some of the blowout losses. I think back to that 49ers loss, the Titans loss.
Yes.
Good teams just don't get blown out.
There's some fans I talked to. Maybe we're prisoners of the moment, though. But there were some people I talked to that said the 0-16 season was not as disappointing.
Right.
As this
Yeah,
one.
I heard that
we're
too.
Probably prisoners of the
I
moment
heard that too.
Because you went 6-10, but at the same time, that really puts in perspective, wow, this was really a disappointment.
Let me ask you guys this, because this was asked to me doing a radio interview or whatever. What if you can point to one thing, and maybe it's just Freddie. Maybe you'll say Freddie, but somebody he just asked me. The person asked me, what's the number one reason why everything unraveled this year for the Browns?
I do think. Not to take the easy way out, I'll pinpoint one, but I do think it was a crazy combination of things that really came to a head that decided to do this. But it could be Freddie Kitchens and the leadership. Also, and I know John Dorsey did a tremendous job in getting talent together. That offensive line from day one just never seemed like it was going to work. And I think that affected Baker Mayfield a little bit because they were able to run the football. But I think that affected Baker Mayfield a little bit more than we thought, where he did have a sophomore slump, and those were a couple of reasons why.
It was kind of one of those things where everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
It was Murphy's Law.
And that's, I remember sitting there in the press box before the Titans game, before the season opener, just thinking, what are the concerns with this team? Like what are we concerned about heading into this season? And you start to think, and I'm like, this offensive tackle situation is not great.
Yeah.
Like, you're really counting on Greg Robinson to stay playing at a level that he hasn't played out through his career. The secondary's kind of shaky. The back seven in general is kind of shaky. First-time head coach, you wonder Baker Mayfield coming back to earth. All of it happened.
There were warning signs, too.
Yeah. There were. And it's, if one of those things goes differently, maybe it completely changes the outlook. I mean, who could have foreseen Myles Garrett getting suspended for
right.
the
Well,
season?
right.
And
that
that
hurt.
was a big blow. There's no way around it. But you asked to pinpoint one thing. Baker Mayfield's regression was pretty alarming.
Yes.
And now I think Freddie Kitchens does play a big part in that, because I think that offense and the play calling was totally disjointed from game one. So maybe you lump it in with that. But they never looked. I mean, Baker Mayfield had more success throwing the ball to Rashad Perriman in 2018 than he did to Odell Beckham Jr. in 2019.
And just Darren Fells. I mean,
just a totally, like I said, Murphy's Law.
Yeah, and one other thing to mention, with Baker, you're going to have to put him in the best position to succeed, where you're playing to his strengths. What does he do well? Well, we saw him in his rookie year, the things that he was able to do well. You got to get back to some of that, and hopefully Stefanski can channel some of that and put him in the best positions to succeed. I was talking to Bernie Kosar earlier, and he said, it's funny with quarterbacks, sometimes we get way too much credit when things are going well, and we get way too much blame when things are going poorly. With Baker, you got to surround him with the right people, and they do have talented receivers. We know they have talented running backs, but I wouldn't be surprised if when the NFL draft rolls around in Las Vegas, you're going to have to try and surround him with some offensive linemen that not only pass protect, but are there for the run game too.
Is that the biggest challenge, though, for Kevin Stefanski when as he gets everybody, puts together this coaching staff and gets everybody in to try to find that greatness that we all thought of Baker Mayfield has and kind of, pull that out? Is that the biggest thing that he's going to have to do initially?
Yeah, I think so, because I think that's the key to success in 2020. This team is not going to make the playoffs or live up to its potential or bounce back or any of that stuff if Baker Mayfield doesn't play better. So whether that's personnel stuff, whether that's scheme stuff, I'm not smart enough to know, but I know that Baker Mayfield looked a lot better and more comfortable in 2018 than he did in 2019.
Well, Dino, you know this. It starts with the quarterback. I mean, I think the Niners are showing us you can do it by running the football, and people were kind of getting down on Garoppolo for what the little he had to do. But it starts with the quarterback, and if your quarterback is able to have success and you're able to put him in positions to do that, I feel like everything else will fall in line. And when you've got the two talented running backs that you have, you do have a defense that definitely needs to improve. But I think if Baker gets right, the team will get right.
So with that in mind, just kind of bringing us now into 2020 a little bit, what, if anything, is there to be done about Odell Beckham? I mean, given what happened last week, I mean, it seems, there are going to be press charges in Louisiana, but it was another, where it's not, I heard somebody talking about it on talk radio today, where it's not anything, it's not breaking any laws, but you just sit there and you go, really? Really? And even Jim Donovan, who I think is like the coolest customer when it comes to players. I mean, even Jimmy was saying last week, at some point you have to sit there and say, is this really worth it?
Well, and I think we're going to hear rumors and things like that. Is he a guy that they could possibly trade or look to trade? I think that those are all things that we're going to hear, whether we agree with them or not. I think those things will be brought up. And, the thing with OBJ is I feel like a lot of times too much of the focus is on the player and not the rest of the team, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like he doesn't like that. He kind of embraces that, and the way Landry's gone about his business, I feel like he's just like the ultimate professional, and it's team first, and I'll do what I have to do. But with OBJ, I haven't felt like that's been the case, and that really did take center stage, unfortunately, after the national championship with LSU.
Well, that's the thing with it was a year ago now, or close to a year ago, the New York Giants traded him. And it wasn't one thing that made them trade him. Mm-hmm. It was the total of all of it. All of it adds up, and at some point you do reach a breaking point where you think, are we better off just moving on and cutting our losses? And proceeding in a different way. I just looked up some of the stories we've written over the course of the last year about Odell Beckham Jr. just off the top of my head.
How many are about football?
Right.
Let's
tally these up.
Let's just go to the start of the season. The watch, the visor, the shoes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Was there something with gloves? Maybe. I just
Yeah.
feel like I'm
Yeah,
going
probably.
through.
The watch. We talked about the
I forgot
watch
the
for
watch.
3 weeks.
Right. Yeah, that was a 3-weeker. So, and then all the come get me stuff, all of that, all of the, the heated exchanges and things of that nature. Him saying I can't get the ball for anything or whatever. Like it's always something. And they weren't, at one point last season, especially toward the end of the season, like they weren't a particularly interesting team.
No.
But Odell Beckham Jr. kept them in the headlines because he's Odell Beckham Jr. So we'll see. I don't think they're at that breaking point just yet. And I think, they should give it another year and see if they can get this thing clicking. I do think it's interesting, though, for a team that's pivoting to an analytics-heavy approach. They're paying, I think, top 6 wide receiver money, 2 of the highest wide receiver contracts in Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. I'm not an analytics guy. I'm not. I haven't read Moneyball.
You don't play one on TV.
No, I've only seen Moneyball, and it was on a flight. But I don't think analytics guys like to spread their money around to wide receivers. With
we've
that
seen that
kind of money.
Even as much as we could pile on and laugh at Sashi Brown and when he was here, the thing I think we saw with those drafts is they really didn't value wide receivers as much. I think it's a great point by Ben. It's like, I don't see these guys under this regime now going and paying these types of guys top dollar. You could probably get it done with a receiver that you could pick up in the 3rd or 4th round, to be quite frank.
Well, Rashad Perriman was a minimum contract type of guy when he was here in Cleveland. And this NFL draft, too, is loaded at wide receiver.
Yes.
I mean, it is. There's going to be first-round talent available when the Browns are in the clock in the 2nd round. And I do wonder if they take a wide receiver there. I think of a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan, a guy who's a first-round talent who could slide into the 2nd round. Does that kind of put the writing on the wall as far as when is Odell Beckham Jr. and or Jarvis Landry's time up?
Be honest, when he said Donovan Peoples-Jones, did you think of Braylon Edwards when he came to Cleveland?
I
thought about that for just a brief second ago. Here we go again.
Here we go again. I remember that.
Just for a second.
But and here's what I wonder. Can Kevin Stefanski get Odell Beckham Jr. to show up for more than just one OTA practice?
That was another story.
Yeah, that was another story. I mean, he made it to mandatory minicamp, but
with the rookie coach, don't you get to go a week earlier? Isn't that how that works?
They did last year too.
You get an earlier.
That's right. We do this every year. Ben's like,
you should go earlier. Right. It's all part of being here.
Yeah.
It's like this starts our clock every year. Sports awards. Earlier year at the
NFL draft.
Yeah,
spring training will be here.
Yeah, but I wonder. I mean, that's something I think will be interesting. It's because Beckham's a guy that likes to work. He has his own regimen. He's got his own routine. And he's a freak of an athlete. And you can't question the results of how he gets his body ready to go. But at the same time, I would think you want him here as much as possible to work with Baker, to work with this new system, and be on board.
Well, and if we're looking at it just through the scope that is analytics for just a second here, if you go out and you say, okay, is Odell Beckham Jr. a great wide receiver or does he have great hands? I wonder if the analytics approach is he's got fantastic hands, he's a great athlete, but we could probably find someone to do what he's doing from a receiving standpoint. What did he have? 3-4 touchdowns last year?
Four touchdowns.
You could probably get that from
Rashad Perriman.
Perriman. By the way, we've mentioned his name 3 times on this thing. This is
he winning an award tonight?
This is great. He's a presenter.
That's right.
But I mean, I wonder if that in their approach, where you're just looking at strictly numbers, if you say, you know what, we could probably supplement the production that we get from just Odell the receiver with a draft pick or somebody else. That's kind of the glass that they look through, I think.
Oh, totally. And it's all about exploiting market inefficiencies and
bingo.
For any position, that's a lot of money to have tied up in a salary cap sport. I know they have a lot of cap space this year, but $32 million of that is rollover from last year, which means they have to use it this year or it goes away. So we actually could see the Browns be players in free agency. But at some point, Myles Garrett is up for an extension. this year.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, if you think he's your franchise quarterback, he's going to be up for an
This is the
extension
year, yeah.
next year. Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, because he was a second-round pick, he'll be up sooner. Kareem Hunt is a restricted free agent, so they've got some money they're going to have to make some decisions with here. And it's just going to be interesting to see how they approach this, because I know, Jarvis Landry's the heart and soul of the team, and Odell Beckham Jr., people still think is one of the most talented players in all of football. But like I said, that's just a lot of money to have tied up in one position, and one that didn't produce at a very high rate last year.
And let me say one thing. I know fans don't want to hear this because they're getting excited for a new regime here.
Yes.
I don't like that. I know there's certain organizations that do it. But the fact that you have your head coach here, you've got coordinators that are here, your chief strategy officers here, your owners obviously here. There's still no general manager here. This is, I don't want to say this is going back to like Mangini, Kokinas type of things here, but it's like, how is your GM not? I know they're interviewing people and they're going to try and fill that here, but this alignment seems a little messed up to me. Maybe I'm
the Senior Bowl's this week.
Who's there?
Right.
Who's there for them? I mean, that's what
I would assume they have scouts.
Stefanski's here tonight.
Right.
So who's down there?
Stefanski's here. I would assume they have scouts.
Alonzo Highsmith and Elliott Wolf are reportedly there, but who knows if – their positions are both kind of in flux,
right,
depending on who gets hired as general manager.
And those are both football guys. Those are from still the John Dorsey tree.
Yep.
So are we going to – I wonder if we uncovered something here. Are we still going to have in the building analytics people and football people going at it?
You guys want to talk about Stipe Miocic, or what do you want to do?
Is he going to fight again?
Yeah, right.
With the eye situation. We can ask him about that tonight, right?
Stipe,
the eye injury.
Yeah. He was looking good. I was talking to your good friend, Dennis Gates, the head basketball coach at Cleveland State, and we were looking at Stipe, and the fact that Stipe is this year's one of the finalists for the Professional Athlete of the Year award, but I always remind people that not only is he a great athlete, but he's also he puts his life on the line as a firefighter. Talking about Miocic.
He's a great guy.
He is.
He's a great guy.
Talk about carrying the badge of honor for Cleveland.
He is. I don't know how many people realize this. He is like the greatest heavyweight UFC fighter in UFC history. Like,
it's crazy
between
to think about.
his 2 title reigns and his record number of title defenses, and not only that, the people he's beaten while defending that title, and obviously we saw that with Daniel Cormier this year, the knockout.
I give Ben credit for that because he talked to Cormier a couple days before the fight.
Yes.
I got in his head
Ben put the jinx on him.
I got in his head a little bit.
Got the Cleveland jinx going on Cormier.
Right.
He was eating sushi in California when you talked to him. Remember that? Or
that's right.
I remember that.
I knew he wasn't focused.
There was no chance. He was eating way too much.
Or well-conditioned. But, yeah, Stipe takes care of business, brings the title home. I just hope Cleveland fans, appreciate – this guy wears, he comes out to Machine Gun Kelly. He literally wears Cleveland, on his sleeve. And he is going to go down as one of the greatest UFC champions, if not the greatest UFC champion of all time. And it looks like, he has to get the eye injury fixed. But I think next he's probably going to fight Daniel Cormier again.
So this will be 3.
They're going to make it a trilogy. And it's going to be one of the most storied trilogies in UFC history.
It's amazing. He does wear Cleveland as he's proud to say, "Hey, I'm from Cleveland. Cleveland, this is for you." Remember, he had the fight here.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I think that the UFC, when he was coming up, they wanted to create, Stipe Miocic, who was this, he was the Czech background, and stuff like that. But he's come out and said, "Hey, I'm all Cleveland." And truth be told, he was a former 215-pounder at East Lake North. I remember him as Steve Miocic, and now he's turned into this Stipe Miocic, and he's all Cleveland. It's cool.
UFC has no idea how to market him. They totally dropped the ball in terms of marketing him, and he's gone out and just through his own pure greatness, he has marketed himself.
His own force of will, so to speak. Yeah.
You can't deny his resume, and I think this fight. Really cemented his legacy. The win over Daniel Cormier, of avenging the loss from a year prior in Las Vegas. I think that really cemented his legacy. And you can't talk about the greatest heavyweight champions or UFC fighters of all time without mentioning him now. And that's something that, after Cormier, who I think he'd be pretty heavily favored over after what we saw last year, we could be talking about a John Jones super fight, which would be one of UFC's biggest fights of the year.
Can you imagine that? Now, Stipe is up against Nick Chubb, Roberto Perez, and Colin Sexton for Professional Athlete of the Year. It's funny. I look at that list and I think, boy, you used to have like LeBron James and Francisco Lindor.
I'm glad you said it. I was
Baker
thinking
Mayfield.
the same thing here.
It's
a whole new ball game.
It's a whole new ball game. Nick Chubb's a guy that I think sometimes we've taken him for granted because of all those box office marquee names on that Browns offense with Mayfield and Beckham and Landry and Hunt. But he came within an eyelash of being the NFL's leading rusher and put up one of the best years a Cleveland Browns running back has ever put up, going back to Jim Brown. And
the best non-Jim Brown
non-Jim Brown season in Cleveland Browns history.
I would say their best overall player this year, right?
Yeah,
he was their best.
Question.
Yeah. I mean, he was unbelievable.
And we all we did it on Twitter. We did it watching the games going, man, why aren't they getting the ball to Chubb more? Why aren't they getting the ball to Chubb? And, that's at least something where Kevin Stefanski can come in and you've got somebody that you can, we saw what he did with Cook in Minnesota. You have something there, especially if you're going to be using that.
He likes to run the ball.
Yeah,
Stefanski.
that Shanahan wide zone offense a little bit. It seems to be tailor-made for a guy like Nick Chubb.
Well, I think the biggest thing, or maybe the most telling thing about the year Nick Chubb had was, you mentioned that. It became a thing on Twitter, like give Nick Chubb the ball, feed Chubb. He led the NFL in rushing attempts. I'm pretty sure he did. And so, but it still felt like he wasn't getting the ball enough, especially against the Bengals in Week 17. But that's another story. But yeah,
or near the goal line against the Rams.
And against the Steelers, where in the second half he only ran it 6 times, and Baker with a bad hand was throwing the ball 100 times. All right, sorry. Not that we're bitter or anything about this.
There certainly were some situational arguments, but he was one. I think we all said feed him the ball because we saw what he did every time he touched the ball. He was always moving forward. He was always ripping off big gains, and he was far and away the most consistent part and most enjoyable part of this offense.
Roberto Perez of the Indians, also a finalist, and last year at this time when the Indians were trimming payroll a little bit, and one of the moves that they made was to trade Jan Gomes to Washington.
You could say it was a salary dump.
It was a salary dump.
Let's see how Daniel Johnson does this.
True. Yeah, right. True. But Perez really defensively, he was a Gold Glover at catcher. But he also put together some of his best offensive numbers of his career, including the 24 home runs. And maybe a little unsung because Santana had the All-Star year, and obviously Lindor, Ramirez, those guys. But Perez was terrific.
No, I'm with you. I mean, look it was his first year being a full-time catcher, and he thrived. I mean, he did a great job handling that pitching staff with a lot of different personalities when the year started. And on top of that, what he brought to you offensively, I thought was great. So, and Gomes helped the Nationals win a World Series.
Yeah.
So I actually think in 2 ways it was a win-win for both clubs because you saw what Perez could be. It's funny, I talked to Frankie Lindor a couple times at spring training. He was like, you wait till this guy's the everyday guy. And I know they're personal friends, but I still think he believed that this was in there. And, Perez has turned himself not into only one of the leaders in that clubhouse, but one of the consistent players too for them. So it was nice to see a great story, and he deserves the honor.
Well, I think too. The reality is with not just the Indians, but in baseball, any of these mid-market or small market teams, like you're not just going to go out and outspend people. You're not just going to fill your holes by throwing money at it. So when you make a trade like the Jan Gomes trade, you're counting on Roberto Perez to step up. Like that's something you need to happen. And they did that at some other positions this year where they were counting on younger guys to step up in different spots, and they didn't step up, and we saw that and how that worked out. Roberto Perez did step up. He stepped up and then some. Defensive Player of the Year by Rawlings, I think.
Yeah.
Just an incredible year for. I mean, a borderline all-star season for him.
Yeah, and you think about what you just said. That's what they're counting on with the Indians' young starting pitching staff, because with Corey Kluber now gone, everybody has got to take a step forward.
Their pitching's gotten to the point where I just assume everybody's going to step up. I mean, if last season didn't make you a believer between Zach Plesac and Aaron Savale and everything.
Don't forget Bieber and all those guys are coming back.
Mean, Mike Clevenger started the season as the number 4 starter.
Yeah.
Shane Bieber the number 5. And now those two are one of them's going to be the ace, and one of them's going to be the number 2. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at what their starting rotation could be. And I also like –
it's amazing when you look at what the Clippers
exactly. Right. You will have guys that are pitching at AAA that could be on teams in Major League Baseball.
I liked Jeffrey Rodriguez.
Yeah,
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too.
He's
Absolutely.
all right, and he's still in the organization.
Yeah.
I mean, so these guys, I do think that the strength of this team will still be with that starting rotation. There's a couple of questions about the outfield. There's a couple of questions about the bullpen. But if we're just looking at the team, man, you look at an infield of Santana and Cesar Hernandez and Lindor. We think he'll be here, and Ramirez. That's as good an infield as you'll find in baseball.
Do you think that, I know Chris Antonetti was asked about this about a week or so ago in a conference call, and Chris is usually pretty open. I mean, I think he was asked about Yasiel Puig, about bringing him back, and kind of close to
he does a nice job of talking around it.
He didn't even talk around it, which kind of made me believe, wonder if they're still talking. Now, of course, with
what did he end up saying? He said, that they're still talking to him?
Something like that, yeah. I wonder, though, I don't think this is the team that they're going to have in spring training. There's going to be one more move yet.
Like a bat or something?
Yeah. Because
they could use it.
The Indians, and they've done this in the past where they'll wait till February, and as the market kind of continues to shrink a little bit, and there's a little bit more of a supply, and the price goes down,
that could help them.
They could go in and do something.
And I do think the lineups for the Twins and the White Sox will be better than what the Indians have. But saying that, I'll take the Indians starting pitching. As they're starting 5 over those. I mean, the Twins have lost some pitching, and outside of Giolito with the White Sox, I know they added Dallas Keuchel, but there's a lot of people that feel he's on the downside now. So I think starting pitching wise, which a lot of people will tell you is the most important part of your baseball team, Indians have the edge there, and I think it's why they're going to be neck and neck with these guys. I think you'll have a 3-team race, but the Indians are going to be right there.
Yeah, my concern is, have you gotten better, and how have they gotten better? And I don't know if they have gotten better. I think you're really counting on, I joked about it, but a guy like Daniel Johnson, you've got to hope he steps up. You've got to hope Jake Bauers bounces back from a disappointing 2019.
You need Mercado to do it again.
Mercado
to
do
what
it
he's
again,
done.
Bobby Bradley to perform.
Yep.
You're going to need some combination of these young guys to just come through. That's the reality of this team. If they aren't going to go out there and re-sign Yasiel Puig or add another bat to the infield or to the outfield, I just don't know how they get better.
Our first guest of the night is a guy who was my partner for several high school football games.
He was the odds-on favorite to be the first guest tonight, by the way.
Yeah, if you had Dennis Maniloff of News Radio WTAM 1100 in your prop bet to be the first guest of the night, congratulations. But D-Man, it's always great to have you here. Thanks for stopping by, my friend.
It's an honor to be on KYC.com. I heard a lot of great things coming from you guys, so thank you for having me.
Are you going to confess you didn't vote for Jeter here?
You were the guy.
Breaking news?
I am not the one. I am one of the 396 who voted for Derek Jeter. Yes. I can't
What did you make of that?
Yeah.
How does someone even get away with that?
I don't know. I don't understand it. I think that when you do something that is such an outlier as that, you owe it to somebody to explain it. I don't think you have a right to hide from that when it's that pronounced. And I will say egregious, because it's ridiculous to me that you would look at a ballot that has Derek Jeter on it and say, no. There's no reason I can possibly think of.
I will say this, though. Mariano Rivera was the first ever unanimous selection. It seems odd that we never had one before that, because there have been other, like, who left Cal Ripken Jr. off their ballot?
Right. Or Willie Mays.
Agreed.
I was the best player I ever saw, Roberto Alomar. Yeah. He went in on second ballot.
Right.
It wasn't long ago, unfortunately, that a thing was leaving a guy off, the first timer. That was actually a thing. Like, people said, we're not voting for first timers. Irrational to me. Didn't make any sense. And thankfully, I think that's gone by the wayside.
I think
now people are, unless this one person decided, you know what, I'm not a first timer. I'm not for first timers. Now, what I find fascinating about the mystery voter is, did the mystery voter cast a ballot last year? Because if he or she did, it's even worse than worse, because you're going to tell me that Rivera's worth 100%, but Jeter's not?
Yeah,
I mean, come on now.
Well, I think Mariano Rivera is the best closer ever.
Yes.
I don't think there's are we saying –
Derek Jeter is, I'm sorry, as great as Rivera is, Jeter is on another level. I mean, when you're asking a guy to go out and play every day, play shortstop every day for the New York Yankees, have a 20-year career, compile the individual stats that he did, including 3,465 hits in the regular season, but it wasn't even about the regular season with Jeter. It was the postseason.
Right.
Yeah.
I say he's one of the greatest winners in my lifetime in any sport. I think it was 16 postseasons, 5 World Series titles, but the two numbers that are staggering, 200 postseason hits.
That's crazy.
200 postseason hits, and I think the runs is 111.
And did he have 3,600 hits?
3,465 hits.
So didn't they
That's regular season.
Didn't they used to say if you had 3,000 hits or 500 home runs, you're in.
That's it.
That's a lock.
Yep.
So what are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in 396 minds, he was a lock. But I'm just saying that even if you were to discount his regular seasons, which you wouldn't need to do because they're Hall of Fame worthy in and of themselves. In other words, if he didn't play a postseason game with those regular season numbers, he's in. But you add 200 postseason hits and it's either 111 or 109, something in the low 100s for runs scored in the postseason alone.
Look what Ben started here. Look what Ben started.
I know. Well, do you guys want to talk about the steroids guys now or what?
but you think about
it. Don't get him going on that.
And the moments. I mean, walk-off home runs, the play in Oakland. I mean, just everything that he did in the postseason.
Yeah. When it matters most.
When it matters most. Now, having said all that, Omar Vizquel, another shortstop from that era, the former Cleveland Indian, went from 42% of the vote to just around 53%, about 11% bump.
That's nice ground.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
That's a good trend.
That's a good trend as he makes his case going forward. And I mean, I do feel like, D-Man, it's inevitable. He's going to get in.
You're going to be close, right?
I'm not sure about that, Dino. First of all, let me say it's encouraging rather than discouraging for O to make up the ground that he did from last year to this year. However, one of the reasons that not only he but others picked up votes, in my opinion, was because the first-timer class was lean, relatively speaking. I mean, any major leaguer's great.
You're talking this year.
Yeah, I'm talking about the guys who were on for the first time. After Jeter, it was lean. And I researched every single candidate, and trust me, after Jeter, nobody was an automatic.
Right.
Nobody was even close to automatic among the first-timers. So what that did was it allowed for room to vote for other guys that you may not have otherwise voted for.
So you're saying next year he could take a step back. He could lose somebody.
Not necessarily, because next year's incoming class isn't exactly awesome
I mean,
either.
the next few are pretty lean.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of Hall of Famers who just retired.
Yeah, not a lot of shoe-ins.
So he could get in.
I mean, we'll see. He's got work to do.
I think the thing to watch with Omar, just tracking this, is what happens with the steroid guys.
Yeah, they're picking up a lot of ground now.
I mean, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were knocking on the door this year, and if they get in next year, does that open up the floodgates to other guys?
Well, yeah, because I mean, you're going to have Manny Ramirez is going to be another one. I mean, I
want to challenge. I want to challenge the X-Man. No, I want to challenge the X-Man on this. Though. When he said Bonds and Clemens knocking on the door, for people like me who don't vote them in, the good news is they got off to a hot start in the Ryan Thibodeau, the world-famous Ryan Thibodeau Baseball Hall of Fame tracker, but they faded. All right, the votes that were not made known to Thibodeau's tracker generally aren't kind to Clemens, Bonds, Ramirez, Sheffield, and whatnot. And again this year, it held up. They only picked up, I think, 2 percentage points from the previous year, each one of them, Clemens and Bonds. They were in the 70s for the longest time, and they ended up in right around 60. So they still have 15% to get to, and they're running out of time because Schilling, Bonds, and Clemens all on the ballot for the 8th time. So they have 2 more years to get it done, and lucky for them, the next couple of years, as Ben said, the first-timer class doesn't exactly blow you away, so there is that opening.
So you're in the BBWAA. You have a vote.
Yes, I am. Yes, I do.
The steroid guys you do not vote for, right?
I have a preponderance of evidence threshold, okay, in which what I say is if there is a preponderance of evidence that a player used PEDs, I do not vote for him. That is a minimum, because if you admitted to it, then that's automatic. If you were busted with a test, as in Ramirez's case, that's automatic. But the minimum for me is the preponderance of evidence threshold. Meaning, how do I apply it in the Barry Bonds case? Didn't flunk a test, never admitted it. I read Game of Shadows, which was co-authored by one of my bosses at the Daily Northwestern way back in the day, Mark Faina-Ruwada. And I also read Love Me, Hate Me. I think it's The Making of an American Anti-Hero by Jeff Pearlman. Essentially 600 pages that chronicled Barry Bonds and Balco and Barry Bonds and PEDs.
I mean, he blew up like a balloon. I mean, he was huge. I mean,
there were so many things that pointed to Bonds using, short of him admitting it or getting popped by MLB, that to me is preponderance of evidence. Therefore, I don't vote him in. Clemens. Book written, I think it was by Perlman as well, about the rise and fall, the Rockets' rise and fall. Another type of deal where the more research you do, the more you realize there's a preponderance of evidence there that Clemens used. Therefore, he doesn't get my vote. That's not bully pulpit.
It's like court TV. I love it.
What about the? Oh, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, this stuff, though, is so widespread in baseball, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yeah. I mean, there are guys in the Hall of Fame who have used. Like,
I would think so.
I mean, there's whispers about certain guys. I can think of a couple of catchers off the top of my head. But I just, to me personally, and I don't have a vote, so I don't get to advocate this case, but I will here because we're on the air.
No, sure, because you can.
To me, it was one of baseball's eras. It just was. It was one of the eras. And there's been the hardball era. There was an era where minorities couldn't play. There's now the technological cheating era. Like, This is just all – baseball, I think, is very clearly divided into eras. And to me, the steroids era is no different.
Ben, I'm not going to disagree about the steroid era being a stain on the game. But what I will, diverge from your point is that I am not willing to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'm not willing to throw everybody out who played in the steroid era. What I have said in my written defenses of my ballot is that I do not preach from the bully pulpit, wag my finger and say you cheated, therefore you don't get my vote. No, I'm the last person in the world who would ever act that way. But what I try to do is stick up for guys that I believe are unquestionably innocent, unquestionably played by the rules. Kenny Lofton comes to mind first and foremost for me.
That's because too bad that he hasn't been on there longer.
He was on 1 year and bounced. But here's the thing. This is why I don't vote for the PED guys who the preponderance of evidence or admit or popped. Because Kenny Lofton was a tremendous player in the steroid era. Okay? Mm-hmm. He was a slasher and a base stealer and a run scorer. He wasn't a Hulkamania. He wasn't a chemistry lab creation that hit the ball 500 feet. So when his career was over, it was diminished by the cheats. And I believe, I will go to my grave believing Kenny Lofton was unquestionably clean. Therefore, I'm sticking up for guys like Lofton who did it the right way and got burned by a bunch of cheats in the steroid era. That's how I view that.
What do you say to the people that say, well, Clemens and Bonds, those guys were Hall of Famers before what do you say about that?
Before we had suspicion.
Are we at Barrington Country Club? Did you just tee me up?
Yes.
That is my absolute number one biggest joke of an explanation by very smart people.
Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying. Okay.
But it is confounding to me that people use this ridiculous, he was a Hall of Famer before, as if that's what happens in the real world, okay?
Here's a couple examples we're going to get right here.
I've said this before.
Here we go.
Yes.
You have an exam. You're taking a 100-question exam, and it's proctored, or a teacher who is worth anything is proctoring, and you get the first 99, you ace them. And then on the 100th, you decide, you know what, Ben Axelrod is a really smart guy. I'm going to cheat off him. Proctor nails you right then and there on the 100th
You're
call.
done.
Yes.
What's your grade?
Yes,
Is it going to be a 99 out of 100? No. If the proctor or the teacher is worth anything and isn't on the take, it's a 0, it's an F. You flunk. Another example. Let's just create a Chamber of Commerce Hall of Fame, all right?
Sure.
You're a citizen and you've been squeaky clean, nothing on your record for 40 years. The first day of the 41st year, you rob a bank. And then a week later, the Chamber of Commerce has a Hall of Fame. Do you think you're getting inducted into the Chamber of Commerce Hall of Fame?
I don't
Even
think
though
so.
you had 40 beautiful years when you robbed a bank the next day after 40? So this idea that, they were Hall of Fame before, it's ridiculous. And here's the thing. If they were Hall of Famers before they used, then don't use.
Yeah.
Right.
But they were
There's
keeping
a
up with
novel
the
concept.
They were
Don't
keeping up with the
use.
Joneses.
But
Barry Bonds saw Mark McGwire getting the cover of SI.
He did
in a
get upset
toga.
about that. He
Right.
did.
But
Yeah.
Ben, at that point then, the player must make the calculation, the value judgment. I'm either going to keep up with the Joneses and risk maybe being ostracized, stigmatized, asterisked, and not make the Hall, or I'm going to just, I'm going to keep up with the Jones. I'm going to gather all the stats I can. I'm going to make all the money I can. I don't think you should get all of it. I don't think you should have the cake and eat it too. In other words, if you get in the Hall as someone who admitted to using, got popped, or had a preponderance, where's the punishment for you?
Well, yeah, what point is the message sent?
When
Yeah.
were you
Yeah.
ever punished in your career?
Well, if
You
your
got
head
your
grows to a
money.
size 8, that's a pretty big
Well, I mean,
You've got to buy new
but here's the
hats.
thing. You got your money, you got your fame, you got this, you got that, and, oh, by the way, you got the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I hear you.
When did you get punished? And here's the other thing. You hear people say, well, I want these guys, and we've had really knowledgeable, reputable national writers defend putting the X or the check or filling the box of Bonds and Clemens and even Ramirez and Sheffield and whatnot. They say, well, we want him in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I think our friend Bob Nightingale is one of those guys from USA Today.
I don't want to name him
No,
because
he
I don't
admits
like
it.
media on
Well,
media
that's all right,
crime.
he
But here's
admits
the
it.
thing. They say, well, we want him in the Hall of Fame, even if it means saying there's putting an asterisk next to it.
Because it's part of an era,
Or
like
writing,
Ben was saying.
writing
Right.
on the plaque.
Right,
Hey,
right,
okay.
with an asterisk.
To
yeah.
which I say, you know what I'd rather have? I'd rather have the mother and the father or the parent take the child into Cooperstown, have the child be a really knowledgeable baseball fan, walk them through Cooperstown, and then as they leave the building, I want the child to say to the parent, why is Barry Bonds not in the Hall? Why is Roger Clemens not in the Hall? So the parent could say, well, you know why? Because of this.
They cheated.
And explain it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have them out and have the parent explain it on the way out of Cooperstown than have them in there with the little postscript. Oh, by the way, they're this or that.
What's going to be, in your mind, short-term and long-term, the after effects of this Houston Astros cheating scandal?
That's a great question.
That is a good question.
I sure hope that it is eradicated out of the game as much as possible. I was going to say humanly possible, but technologically possible. When I hear people like Mike Clevenger making an impassioned case against the Astros and against the cheaters, when you hear CC Sabathia, now retired, say, hey, we were cheated out of a title because of these guys. When that happens, when players who went through it decry it and rail against it, then you take it very seriously. And I think that the Manfred punishments his hands were tied by the CBA, by the collective bargaining. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing he wasn't able to, for example, institute a postseason ban because the players' union would have a conniption.
Right.
It's actually they gave the players immunity so that they could get the full scope
The testimony?
of,
Yeah, so you're never going to bust Bregman or Altuve for the alleged buzzer.
Yeah.
Don't take my shirt off. but listen, I hope the Astros never live this down. I hope it's a stigma for them for the remainder of their careers. I hope that baseball and baseball fans never view the Astros the same way again. I don't care if all of the cheaters, all of the people involved in the scandal have moved on 1 year. Let's say 10 years down the road, there's nobody left. I still want the Astros to be remembered for being cheaters in this fashion.
So you won't be voting for Alex Bregman for the
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I believe that Bregman and Altuve, among others, were up to no good. I choose to believe Dr. Smooth was not, because by 2019 we were told, okay, the Astros had finally knocked it off. However, I find it interesting. World Series 2019, you read about it. The Washington Nationals were well aware of all of the suspicions surrounding the Astros. They knew about all this stuff from 16, 17, 18. What was the Astros' home record against the Nationals in the 2019 World Series? Oh, that's right, 0-4. Now, they got it done on the road. I give you that. They won 3 out of 3 on the road. But I'm so happy that Yan Gomes and Cabby and the boys took them out in 7 games and beat them 4 times at Minute Maid Park. Because, I mean, imagine having to live with that World Series title. Imagine if the Astros had won the 19 title. And then we get all this stuff about the Astros from 17 and 18 potentially with the Red Sox. Well, people are going to go, well, what about the 19 Astros? They must have been doing it too.
With the cheating thing, what do you say to the people that say, well, in different eras.
What kind of cheating?
We've seen things like this. World War II, when Bob Feller came back,
there was a telescope
from there. They said that they were using the scoreboard. I think
at the Polo Grounds. Shot heard around the world with Ralph Branca and Bobby Thompson.
I mean, they say that it was that form of technology at the time where this was used. There was an article, I forget where it was from, that they were talking about it on the radio yesterday, that points to the Cleveland Indians back in 1948 using some sort of advanced sign stealing. And what did they do in 1948?
Won the World Series.
That was the Feller telescope, too.
What do you, I mean...
I think you've got to draw the line at if you put a battery in it. That's where you draw the line. If a battery is involved.
That's right.
But I mean, think about a World War II telescope. That's pretty advanced technology back then.
To piggyback off what Ben just said, I will draw a line not only with the battery part, but with the human not wearing a uniform part.
Yeah.
The last thing in the world I want for the game of baseball is for some guy wearing a suit and tie or a sweatsuit, sitting in a little room with a monitor, factoring into a World Series game. Are you kidding me?
Remember the guy that was in the dugout for the
he was just making sure the Indians weren't cheating.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
Exactly.
And that's
riding on the team plane.
That still galls me to this day. Not because the Astros ran over the Indians in 3 games in that division series, because I felt like the Astros were the better team, even shrouded in the controversy. But it galls me to this day that MLB just said, oh, no big deal. No big deal. The guy standing next to Dre Knott. Dre Knott's got the best story ever about that. He's right there when the guy's taking pictures of the Indians' dugout, stealing signs, and he's just, and they removed him. And MLB acted like it was no big deal. Oh, we're just removing somebody from the photo bay.
And his credentials said Houston Astros.
Right. And here's the thing.
It's amazing.
And I was reading one place where I swear somebody said this guy was a friend of Astros owner Jim Crane. So Crane comes across Brian Crane, but Jim Crane. He comes across as kind of a hero because he took the commissioner's sanctions a step further, and he fired Lunau and he fired Hinch, and good for Jim Crane. But the question is, did he really know this guy who was standing next to Dre? You telling me Jim Crane knew nothing about any of this? Not one thing. He supposedly didn't know anything that was happening with his team.
It's like Charles Comiskey and the 8 men out.
You mean to tell me Crane, from wherever he sat at his Astros games or watching it on TV, he didn't hear the trash can? He never heard it once and said, hey guys, why is there a trash can being banged in our dugout? Oh, it's just the cleaner. Yeah, we're just cleaning, we're just taking the garbage out during the game. You mean to tell me Crane had no knowledge of any of this?
And I think baseball, I think a lot of guys in baseball knew of this. Who's the relief pitcher for the Chicago White Sox? Is it Farquhar?
Farquhar, yeah.
He brings the catcher and he goes, hey, listen, this is what they're doing. We need to change our signs. He puts the one down, which is a fastball, and it's a curveball, and they strike out. I think it was Altuve. So it's like, yeah, this is. I mean, guys were onto this a little bit, but I don't know.
Well, and here's the thing: lest we think that nobody other than the Astros and maybe the Red Sox did it, that would be naive. You think about Verlander. Now, even before he gets to Houston, Verlander had his suspicions about the Indians. He was always paranoid when he came to Progressive and Jacobs, and then Progressive. He was always calling his catcher out, and several times after games, he was intimating the Indians were stealing signs. So it's not just the Astros and maybe the Red Sox or just Alex Cora and Beltran and Hinch. But I hope that Commissioner Manfred lays down the law once again, because he tried to do it once, and the Astros defied him, and that's why he came down so hard. But I hope that the memo has gone out to every team. This will not be tolerated, and if it is, then I may have to take the next step and strip you of a title or somehow figure out a way to institute a postseason ban, even if it flies in the face of the collective bargaining agreement.
Dennis Maniloff, kind enough to join us here at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards, the 20th anniversary of the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards.
Fun story about D-Man. He was at the very first one.
Yes,
and it was not like this.
No.
Oh, man. No carpet. This was a meat locker. Almost literally a meat locker. One table, Withers and I, we were freezing. I think Jeff Shudell might have been here. But it was one.
This was not this.
One glass
yeah,
of
was
water.
not. It was not like this.
One glass of water. That was about it.
And you've been to every one?
Yes, I have. So
LeBron with the Hummer.
So is the lovely Denise. Yes. Denise and I kept our streaks alive this year. You've had everything from Don King and his hair only in America with Vonda Ward. He was claiming Vonda Ward was going to be the next big thing. In fact, some of the reporters that year, we believe that we talked Don King into backing a Vonda Ward fight, because we had convinced him that Vonda Ward was something to behold, and they met each other at the Cleveland Sports Awards, and next thing you know, he's like, hey, Vonda Ward, she's our guy, she's our girl. And she wound up fighting once, I think, in a Don King sanctioned card. But we've had Hummergate with Gloria and LeBron. I mean, it was right in this very room was when we were trying to get the 411 on what was happening. And
what was I know about the Hummer, but what was going on here?
Well, we had LeBron was here, and
he drove the Hummer here, right?
He drove the Hummer here
to get his high school athlete of the year award.
So this was 2003.
Think about what you just said.
Yeah,
he drove the Hummer here to get the high school of the athlete award.
That's right.
And here's the thing: one of the photographers was, I believe, ejected from the premises for going down into the basement to try to get a picture of the Hummer.
Good.
So
you're right, though. It was 2003.
Yeah. Well, you're right. What would it have been? Because these have always been in January.
In January,
February, So this was right in the middle of all of that chaos. And by the way, my older brother was part of LeBron's legal team that fought the suspension.
The OHSAA.
And got the overturn.
That's
and
right.
Got the temporary injunction. And I have the document, which is kind of cool. I have one of the copies of the document. LeBron James versus the OHSAA, and it's kind of like a keepsake. I didn't have LeBron autograph it, but I have a nice little folder, and
I know some memorabilia dealers around here.
I don't know how many of those exist, but it's kind of cool because I give my brother props for putting he helped put the case together that LeBron took to challenge the punishment that he got from the OHSAA.
There is a buzz in the room, and you've had this, many times with at these sports awards, as a newly hired Cleveland Browns head coach makes his way in, and it's going to be Kevin Stefanski's turn here in a little bit, and there's a bit of a buzz in here tonight. We haven't had a chance really to talk to Kevin very much.
Although that's almost a tradition here at the Greater.
It is.
Cleveland Browns coaching changes.
Yep. Come on down to the sports awards. Come meet the media. What are your baseline thoughts on Kevin and what the Browns did in this hiring process.
Before we get to that, Dino, was it Rodgers, the defensive lineman, with Mangini? They had a little kerfuffle.
I believe so.
I witnessed it. It was right here. The one that was talked about was when Mangini and Rodgers crossed each other, and they didn't say anything to each other. And then later on, it was talked about how Mangini and Rodgers didn't get along, and they cite, the reports were citing the death stares, if you will. I saw that happen. Wow. Here comes Mangini, and there goes Rodgers. Oh my gosh, they're not even looking at each other. They shot a glance and then turned their heads. So that was kind of fascinating. But Stefanski, this is all about Camino. My answer is all about Nick Camino. No. He knows what I'm going to say.
What is this now?
For years
Careful.
and years and years,
I've said a lot of dumb things.
No.
Ben did a whole season of chalk talk with me.
By the way, you guys did a great job.
Great show. Not to be missed.
For years and years, I fell for the banana in the tailpipe. I gave the new Browns coach an A++ for the presser, including – not so long ago,
Freddie.
You don't wear brown and orange, it don't matter. Yeah! Let's go get him. So I have fallen for the banana in the tailpipe over and over and over. And what does Camino tell me? Show me, don't tell me. Every year he tells me, stop falling for this.
Well, just go do it on Sunday.
Until they win.
That's
and every year I'm proven wrong. So finally, this year, regardless of who it was going to be, I said I'm not going to grade the presser. I'm barely going to listen to it, even though I study Cleveland sports as much as I possibly can. I really did take a hands-off approach to the whole Stefanski intro because I didn't want to get sucked in. I didn't want to sit there and go, oh, Kevin. Oh, Kevin, you're going to lead us to the promised land. Show me, don't tell me. He sounds great. He sounds bright. He sounds like he knows what he's doing. But show me the wins.
Yeah, sure.
I got to see wins.
I mean, we are all about the victories. As some of the award winners are starting to make their way in here.
Cribsy.
Yeah.
Cribsy, a longtime participant at the
Carey.
TJ Carey is here. So, starting now, we're getting some of these award winners in here. So we'll start to have a few more interviews coming up here. But, and it'll be interesting because the buzzword this year has been alignment. The Browns have wanted to have everything in Berea aligned, and we still don't know who the general manager is going to be yet. May have a resolution on that here shortly, but from that standpoint, D-Man, I think they feel like there's not going to be as much us and them, analytics versus football people. They're going to be more aligned.
Again,
show us.
We'll see.
Yes,
because the key to this, it's an obvious statement, is Jimmy Haslam. Stefanski could be the next Belichick. He could be the next Andy Reid. He could be the next, great coach. But if he's not given the opportunity by Haslam, if Haslam gets impatient in year two, we pray not year one. I mean, I can't even fathom back-to-back one-and-dones. I don't know if that's ever happened in the NFL. But it would be frightening to think of back-to-back one-on-ones. But as early as year two, is Haslam going to get impatient with a couple of losses? It seems to be Jimmy Haslam's MO as an owner, whether it be of a professional team or in his private life, that he is impatient, that he goes through guys, he hires and fires, he hires and fires. I pray that if Stefanski is given time by Haslam, he will get it done. I will say this. I think the impatience of Jimmy Haslam with Freddie Kitchens was the correct call.
Yes.
I mean, granted, you say, well, he's got to be patient, Not in the case of Freddie Kitchens. I think he was overwhelmed from the jump. I don't think it was going to get appreciably better in year two. So I was in favor of Haslam being impulsive in this particular case. But I hope that he allows his crew to do its job, whatever the alignment is. We think George Payton might be the guy. Now, I found it funny. One day I was listening to a show somewhere, and they said, George Patton is going to be interviewing for the Browns. Oh, I said, George Patton? Oh, blood and guts? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Is
Omar Bradley his boss?
Yes.
I mean.
So it's George Payton.
Yeah.
P-A-T-O-N.
Is it
but
a little bizarre to you that, okay, you got the head coach, you've had coordinators hired, ownership's here, obviously. You've got football people coming back, maybe Alonzo Highsmith and Elliott Wolf or whatever. But there's still no GM. Is that strange to you that in this alignment that they have that there's no GM yet?
Not necessarily, Camines, because elsewhere, not everywhere, but elsewhere, including, I believe, San Francisco with Shanahan, that was the setup. It was Shanahan first, Lynch second. So I think it can be done. So I wasn't as caught up in that furor as maybe some people were.
Okay.
Because if the head coach is hired first, and in other words, a McDaniels situation. If you tell me that McDaniels is going to be your coach and Caserio is going to be your GM, I'm good with that. If McDaniels is bringing Caserio,
gotcha,
that's fine.
Yeah, I get that.
But so I think it can work. But again, the common denominator in all the controversy has been Jimmy Haslam. He's got to stay out of the way and allow these guys to do their jobs.
Yeah, it's well put. That's well put.
Well, we are waiting our first our award winners of the night. We can tell you, we can start to at least give it away here. Who has won the male and female high school athletes of the year?
Here we go.
From Bay Village High School, Kyle Cusimano. He is a young man who helped lead Bay to a 16-0 regular season record in soccer and a #1 ranking in the OHSA Division II poll. He had 32 goals. He holds the career record, school record, of 81 goals and 64 assists.
He's going to be a Falcon.
And he's going to be a Bowling Green Falcon.
Oh, nice.
So I naturally like him even more.
D-Man, a Bay High grad, they've always been like a soccer power, right, over there, haven't they?
Not always, but really the Brad Friedel era.
Yeah.
When Brad Friedel
Team
came
USA.
through the ranks, he's one of the all-time great American soccer players, period. Went on to UCLA, won a national title, a 20-year professional career all over the world. But he was coming up through the Bay Village ranks, and his teams were awesome.
Okay.
They were not awesome, but they were really, really good. And at the time, North Olmsted was the kingpin. And when Friedel's crew came through, they challenged North Olmsted's supremacy. And by the time Friedel had graduated from Bay, the seeds had been planted for Bay soccer, and they've been really good for the most part ever since.
Now, the female athlete of the year, this again makes my heart warm, from the Strongsville Mustangs.
Everyone's going to BG?
No, she's actually going to Ohio State, but she's from my high school alma mater.
My alma mater.
Okay. She's going to Ben's alma mater. Kirsten Eppley from Strongsville High School in softball. They had one of the best seasons that they've had in the last 9 years, making it to the district round of the tournament. She set 7 school records last year, 6.59 average, 6 triples, 9 homers, and was a first-team Cuyahoga County and first-team All-Ohio selection. And again, heading to the Ohio State University, they will love her down there, as the Buckeyes will get a slugger in Kirsten and what she could do from a softball standpoint. So those are your first 2 winners of the night. And as Ben pointed out, I saw, Josh Cribbs and TJ Carey.
Mark Price.
Mike
Fratello.
Yeah.
Booby Gibson.
Oh, we got to talk. Maybe get Mike Fratello over here a little bit.
My God,
bizarre. He'll draw up a play right on Ben's computer there for us.
That's one of the great nicknames in sports.
Bizarre
the Telestrator.
It is.
I mean, I would imagine Albert gave it to him, right?
Yes.
That's a phenomenal.
And that was really one of my all-time favorite NBA announcing partnerships with Marvin Fratello. It just that was always when NBC had the NBA. That was you always looked forward to those guys.
Meanwhile, you talk about a coach who got the most out of his teams.
Oh,
those were not the most talented teams.
No.
He took those teams to the playoffs.
I mean, he. You talk about getting the most. Yeah,
right?
Getting.
Some of those teams had no business in the NBA.
And it was not. It was not great necessarily to watch, but you appreciated defense.
Yeah.
You appreciated fundamentals.
Yep.
And I mean, he got those Cavs teams to the postseason. You're like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
The college. We have.
And professional.
Oh, they just announced the professional athlete of the year. We talked about him a few moments ago. Stipe is your professional athlete of the year.
Presented by Kevin Stefanski.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
I was hoping
there
Stipe would win. He deserves it for the victory over Cormier to reclaim the heavyweight belt. in the UFC. I hope his eye's okay. When you guys get to talk to him, I hope.
We brought that up
okay
earlier.
Yeah, we'll ask him. The male and female collegiate athletes of the year also have been announced. Naz Hillman, who I think she was here last year.
Yeah, I think she was
from the high school end of things. But now at Michigan, she was the Big Ten's freshman of the year.
Nice.
And she is the female athlete of the year, the male athlete of the year from the University of Mount Union. I have to remember not to call it Mount Union College.
I'm so used to saying Mount
University
Union
of Mount Union. Jordan James. He is the NCAA Division III National Wrestling Champion at 133 pounds.
It'll be weird saying that the Karras family's not really with Mount Union anymore either after a while, right?
Were you
interesting development?
I'm
as surprised as you were, man.
I was like, wow. I mean, just not something, you're used to that dynamic, but at the same time, I mean, Vince is going to get an opportunity now to maybe get himself elevated into the high rankings of college football and maybe get himself into the Division I realm at some point.
Yeah. Are these winners going to be making their way over to us? Is that how that's going to work?
Yes.
I think some of the winners.
If Craner's making sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That's great, Brian Crane.
I might have to go stalk for Kevin Stefanski here.
Are you going to be the stalker?
I'm going to go stalk.
Okay.
Do what you got to do.
Okay. We'll see you back here in a few minutes.
Let us know what he says. You have to come back and let us know what he says.
All right. So
that'll be good.
Mr. Axelrod will be back in a few minutes. He's going to help us as we get ourselves over with Kevin Stefanski. We will have.
I'll eject as soon as you bring a real celebrity in.
Actually, we've got our two high school athletes of the year joining us.
D-Man.
Kyle Kirsten, please join us. D-Man, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, grab a headset.
Throw those headphones on.
There you go. There you go.
There.
All right, Kyle, you put your headphones on first, so we'll get you first here.
Everyone will get all situated here.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, absolutely. We were talking about the Bay soccer program, synonymous with excellence.
Tell them how excited you are.
Yes,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a Bowling Green grad. I'm also a Strongsill graduate.
Oh,
so
really?
the fact
this is pretty cool.
This is pretty cool for me. I got to tell you to have this, but. The fact that you're going to the Falcons is great, but talk about what you and the Rockets were able to accomplish.
Our first undefeated regular season in school history, so really cool to be a part of history that no one can take away from us. Like, we were the first team, no one can take that from us, so that's really cool. I just had the most amazing teammates. They're going to play somewhere great in college. I know the younger guys are going to do great stuff with their lives, and I'm just really excited to see what they do. And it was just awesome to have the pleasure to play with them.
For both of you, and you guys can answer in any order you want, it's got to be cool to be a part of a night like this. I mean, you think about, you've got the Browns here, the Cavs, the Indians. You've got so many great pro athletes that are here. You guys are here being honored right with them. How neat is that for you guys?
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Like, just to, walk around and see Josh Cribbs and Michael, and all those celebrities, it's just such a cool experience.
Yeah, you had to pinch yourself a little bit?
Oh, my God. When I saw Josh Cribbs up there handing my award, I was like, what the heck's going on?
It was funny. We were saying this is one of the cool things about the sports awards. It doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, Mark Price walked by for me, and that was like,
that was our moment.
Yeah,
wow.
My parents had the same moment. My mom's like, you know who that is? I'm like, I think so. And she was like drooling over him. It was crazy.
Yeah. But now you guys are part of this legacy now, and you take this to Ohio State, to Bowling Green, and maybe we see you back here next year or the year after for the College Awards. But you guys are part of this great Cleveland sports legacy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's super cool to be a part of.
Now, you were, Kirsten, you were part of kind of getting Strongsill softball back into, the point where they were making a deep postseason run. Talk about the year you had. I mean, just putting up monster numbers for the Mustangs.
Yeah, I had super helpful teammates with me. They were all so supportive, and they just pushed me to be the best, and I worked super hard over the off season, and I'm thankful to have a dad who is always supporting me and always working hard with me, and I was just able to help my team out to the best of my abilities and to carry them to our first districts in 9 years. It was an incredible feeling.
And Ohio State is the choice. That's where you're heading.
Yes.
What stuck out to you? Why ultimately Ohio State? Because I know a lot of teams or schools were recruiting.
Yeah, well, originally I was committed to Akron.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I committed my sophomore year, and then last May, the coaching staff got fired. So I was like, I was in a spot where I was like, I don't know what to do. And my commitment couldn't be honored until there was a new coach.
So you reopened it.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
I reopened my commitment, and I was so thankful that Ohio State had shown some interest, with the big numbers I had put up in my past season. And I just went to a lot of their camps. I continued to work hard and have faith in God that he would put me in the right spot, and he did.
What about for you, Kyle? What made Bowling Green the right choice for you?
I knew you'd. I knew this was going to be.
Yes. Yeah. Picking right up from your question. Yeah.
The coaching staff was definitely probably my favorite coaching staff that I got to meet with, and I love the Coach Nichols and Coach Teepin. They're just great guys, and I feel like the community down there is really tight, and it reminds me of my own city, so it just felt like home right when I got there.
It's cool. I mean, Bowling Green, I think about some of the great teams in a lot of different sports across the board. I know we follow football and basketball a lot, but just the entire athletic program.
Hockey.
Hockey over the years.
Hockey
has done a
national
great job.
championship.
Women's basketball. I mean, they've got it all at BG, and it's nice that it's not too far either.
No, in both of your cases, it's just far enough away where you get away from.
You can always come home though.
But you can always come home. Bring the laundry home when you need to. I mean, it's always close enough. Come home and have a home cooked meal whenever you want. That's the best part. Congratulations to both of you. I know you have more interviews to go to, but continue to carry the torch for Cleveland as you move on to college, and congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Well,
our high school
fantastic.
athletes of the year from University Hospital Sports Medicine, Kyle and Kirsten.
How about that?
They and here's the thing, they absolutely appreciate the what tonight means for them, and just you can see how excited they are.
Yeah,
I
always felt that's the most cool part of this, is that on top of the pro teams that get behind this, you have these high school and college athletes that are right on the same level as those athletes tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They feel they are just as important, and it's great that we get to honor them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that they do that, and it's not just the football or basketball. It's we're honoring soccer.
Yes.
We're honoring softball, wrestling. The sports that aren't necessarily the high revenue sports, but you're honoring excellence. We are going to get a basketball award, but the fact that a young man like Jordan James is a national championship wrestler,
big deal.
That's a big deal.
It's always cool too on a night like this. Like, look over here where they're doing a radio interview. You've got Mike Fratello with Boobie Gibson. You had you had Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, with Stipe Miocic.
Yes.
You got a lot of different.
Here comes the champ.
Here he is.
There he is.
Him right now.
Stipe, good to see you.
Love the suit. That is fantastic, champ. Good to see you.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Wow. It was on my wife.
You make it look good, my man. I mean,
my wife makes it look good. We had a disagreement before it came out. Another suit picked out with a bow tie, and she said it didn't match, and I felt like it did. So I'm still up in the air about that one. So,
Professional Athlete of the Year, congratulations! So well earned, and it was an awesome moment. You still you think about winning all the work you put in to win back the title. And all that hard work, it came to fruition.
Yeah, it was a long year. I've stuck to my guns. Thank God I have good people around me, like my wife. I'm very lucky to be married to my wife. She's an amazing woman, and she's always been there for me through all the good, through all the bad. My family too. They're all here. My parents and my in-laws, and I'm very lucky. And man, it all worked out. And it was overwhelming when I got called and everyone's cheering, going crazy. I'm a real sensitive guy for being a big guy. I almost started crying right there. You know what I mean? I was like, it's a Cleveland thing, but I don't know. It's a lot more. Like, it means a lot more to me than most of these awards I've gotten. It's just it's pretty sweet.
I was going to say, the thing about Champ is that you've always had Cleveland. I mean, you've worn Cleveland across your chest since day one, even when you were fighting and people didn't know who you were. Now as the heavyweight champ, I mean, you've always had Cleveland. Why is that, and how important is it to you?
Cleveland's a different breed of people, man. Just I don't know. It's hard to explain. Because I try to tell people, like when we fought here in whatever year it was, God, it was so long ago. It feels like a couple years ago. Everyone's making fun of me from the UFC. They're like, "Oh, Cleveland," and they're like, "Man, when we coming back, those feet are so good." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I thought." Yeah, but just Cleveland. It's a different breed of people. That's what it is, and that's what I love about it.
This has been, it's interesting. I was thinking about this. I was there the night when Eastlake North and Willoughby South played, and you were honored, out there at that game. And
the big rivalry
there. The big rivalry, North versus South, but you were honored that night too. And That was one thing Nick and Ben and I were talking about is that, wherever you go, you've always been an ambassador for this area, for Northeast Ohio, for where for whether you're talking about Willowick and East Lake and Lake County to Cleveland, you've always been an ambassador for this area.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like fighting. I've done well. I know I'm the champion of my division, whatever. But I'm never going to change who I am. And that's one thing I think a lot of people we never change who we are. We no matter what happens in life, we're going to be the same person. That's like I said, like what I love about Cleveland, man. No one ever changes. Everyone's like, so take me as I am.
That's right.
A lot of people knew that you were going to maybe be coming on with us tonight. So a lot of fans want to know, the latest of what's going on with you.
I don't know either.
Just tell us, how are you feeling?
Yes.
I know that a lot of people are thinking about how are you feeling and what's next for you.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to take the phone call. I'm not answering. I know. A lot of people want to know how you feel, champ.
Yeah.
I'm feeling honestly. I had a torn retina from the fight, so I had to get that healed up. It took a while to heal up, and I still have spots in my eye, but I'm trying to get back in the gym slowly. But I just want to see how it feels. And I love fighting, but at the same time, I also want to be able to see out both my eyes when my daughter gets older.
Indeed.
So I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I want to make sure I'm healed and ready to go. Once I'm healed, then I'll be going.
That's what I wanted to know. That's what people wanted to know about the eye. I'm glad you brought it up. The eye.
Right. No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure I'm healed. Because I don't want to start too soon and have to start all over again. And I'm 37. I'm not 28 again.
Because there was some other guy who was talking about was it Cormier? He was wondering if there was going to be a part 3. I said we're not going to ask that tonight.
Right? No. This is nice for you. You have the opportunity to come out to something like this and see all the great Cleveland athletes, and you don't have to worry about when you're going to be fighting again. You can enjoy, not just for you and your family, but be a part of this whole experience in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome. I was here a couple years ago, right when the Cavs won it. That year. After I won it too, and I wish you didn't get to stay. I didn't even do dinner party. I think I just came and I walked in and walked out.
I remember that.
Yeah, I walked in and walked out. It was great. I mean, honestly. So I walked in and walked out, and I got to feel a little bit of it, but honestly, getting to bring my family here and they enjoyed it. My mom loved it. My mom was like, "Oh, I got dressed up. This is awesome."
Best dressed of the night.
Best
right?
dressed, no doubt.
I appreciate it.
Champ, thank you. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. Congratulations.
Enjoy it, guys.
The 2019 Greater Cleveland Sports Award Professional Athlete of the Year. And it's so
cool because he's so Cleveland too.
Yes.
That's the cool part about it. He's Cleveland through and through, and so to have him talking, and I got a little news out of that. Right?
I know, right?
We had to ask that.
Again, the eye's going to heal, and then
and that's important. He wants to make sure that thing is back to almost 100%.
Number 25 is going to stop by.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic.
We love that.
All right, as we continue at the Greater Cleveland Sports Award, one of tonight's presenters, Cavaliers legend, his number 25 is hanging at the rafters of Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Looks like he could still go out there and drain a bunch of threes and some free throws. Mark Price.
Well, I could drain free throws and threes if I didn't have to move too much. But looks can be deceiving sometimes, guys.
It's so great to have you back in Cleveland. Good to see you. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm living in Charlotte, North Carolina right now, but it's always good to come back to Cleveland and just see so many faces, familiar faces, and it's always. I had such a great relationship with the city and the fans while I played here, and it's always fun for me to come back and kind of get the old juices flowing again, man.
Oh yeah.
We had a chance to catch up earlier, you and I, at the cocktail hour, and you were talking about how special it was for you. Not only to always come back, but this year they honored you and former players. How neat was that to come back and spend some time with those former cast?
Oh, it was awesome. Brad, Larry, Craig Elo, Gerald Wilkins, Terrell Brandon, Tyrone Hill, a lot of guys that I played with while I was here, and just getting to share old war stories, man.
Yeah.
And expand on them a little bit. So as you get older, you add some details.
Absolutely.
But it was good. It was great getting to catch up with those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I
still watch, if I see documentaries on NBA and sometimes like the Detroit Pistons Bad Boys is on, I always tell people, you didn't see, you guys deserve a documentary of your own, because the team in the late 80s and early 90s, what you guys went through, the ups and the downs, and how you made the Richfield Coliseum an amazing place to watch a game and to be a part of. pretty spectacular stuff that what you guys accomplished. Without winning the championship, there was no shortage of memories and great moments that your group was a part of.
I agree. It was quite a metamorphosis when we all came in. I mean, we had 5 rookies that played significant minutes. My first year with Brad and Ron. I came in, Johnny Newman, who was a second-round pick, and Hot Rod, who was already here but couldn't play the year before.
That's right.
So, when you're playing with 5 rookies a lot of times, and we were still able to win 31 games that year. I mean, you look at a young team now, and teams expect you to win 9, 10, 11, 12,
yeah, I was gonna
12
say,
games.
that's it.
I'm like, and we thought we all came from good programs, so we were like, God, we stink. 31 wins. I mean, and then, the next year we just kept building. But like you said, the Richfield Coliseum was such a great place. But you could tell the difference because our first year, when teams like Boston would come in, I mean, half the place was green.
Right. Right.
And then the Lakers would come in, and there'd be yellow and purple everywhere.
Right.
But a couple years later, that wasn't happening. It was orange and blue, and we had that place rocking. It was a great environment to play basketball.
I had a chance earlier to talk with Mark. Asked him his favorite memory, and there's so many that
yes.
you could point to. But could you reflect on that again? The one that still sticks out to you when you mentioned Larry Bird.
Yeah, we played Boston in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and it was Larry Bird's last season, and it was a great series. Went 7 games, 7 games back in Richfield. And, we ran away with that one and got to the conference finals. But, being a part of just, Larry Bird's last, I'll tell everybody I ended Larry's career. Right. I ended Larry Bird's career. So, but that was a great memory. But there were so many, just so many great memories in that arena.
And they all, and like you said, when you have, because you don't get a chance to get together with those guys that often, I'm sure. And when you can sit down with Larry and Brad and Coach and everything, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I remember when I did this. Or remember when you did the old jokes start coming back out.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
It picked up Larry Nance. He was the guy that gave nicknames to everybody, and he was just throwing them out, like we were back in the locker room again, So it was like we had never left.
Are you still singing? I know, because that was something when you were here.
Right.
That was a big part of what you were about. In addition to playing hoops,
yeah.
Your faith and your singing was huge.
Yeah, I was very involved in the chapel of Akron. The church there. Newt Larson was a pastor, but did a lot of singing with some guys there. But unfortunately, I don't get to sing as much anymore.
Yeah.
As I used to, but that was something I always enjoyed doing. It kind of gave me something out of basketball to get away from the hustle and bustle, and it was something I always enjoyed doing.
And Mark, the NBA and college game, do you still follow it all very, very closely? Or?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've taken this year off, but I mean, I was with the Denver Nuggets last year on their staff, and I've been coaching, for the last 8-9 years.
Both college and
NBA.
College and NBA. So yeah, I mean, I'm just like, if a good game's on, I'm watching, man. And my youngest son's, now playing in college. So,
okay.
So I get to go and watch some of their games. So it's it's a fun time of life, and the game. When you played it and lived it as long as I do, you loved it. It never quite leave. Of course, I pick all the players today apart, just like all the old guys do,
when you said earlier when you first came to the Cavs, it was a lot of young players, a lot of rookies, and it's kind of like that for them right now. I mean, Kevin's still there, but and Tristan, but they've got a lot of young players, and it takes time to develop chemistry, and it's the NBA, everybody is in such a win now mode, but it takes time to put that foundation together, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and you hope you get lucky along the way too, because I mean, you even take our draft. I mean, Brad was number 1, Ron was number 7. Those guys had high expectations, but I mean, they get me at 25.
Right.
Johnny Newman in the 30s, 40s, and so you got to get a little bit lucky sometimes with maybe not the high picks, but the other guys, and then you got to start filling in the gaps. But I think the difference is, and it's just a dilemma that teams have to face today in today's environment, is just the youngness of the players. I mean, it's just. We all came in and were rookies, but we were all 4-year guys that had played in good programs for 4 years. I think there was just a little bit higher maturity level, and I'm saying that in a negative way, but I'm just talking years-wise. Guys coming in at 19 years old, and You know, they're so young and you know, beyond the basketball, just life in general. Now you're making millions of dollars and you're 19 years old and all the things that comes with it. So it's a challenge, you know, with these young kids coming into the league now.
And I know we're in Cleveland, which is it's a heavy pro sports town, but I love college hoops, Mark. And I feel like this one and done and I wonder, is there a way to keep these kids in college longer? You're not only going to help the college game, but man, you're really going to prepare them for the NBA more. I mean, I don't feel like that's too old man speak to stay a couple extra years in college, is it?
Well, I think that would be best.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think the economics of, you know, I don't think you're ever now going to go back that direction.
Yeah.
It's going to even go back, I assume pretty soon it's going to be kids can go straight from high school again.
I would think. We're leaning in that direction.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And it's just because of the Players Association and things like that. I don't think that they'll ever agree to have guys hold
I feel
off
bad because
like
I feel
that.
like the college game also suffers.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I think anybody that really looks at it and says what would be best for the game would agree with
Yes.
you. I mean, it would be best for the game for guys to stay at least 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, just
at
even
the college
2.
game.
Yeah.
I mean, just your experience in the 80s in the ACC and how great. I mean, your Georgia Tech teams, Maryland with Lenny Bias, Carolina, Duke, NC State. I mean, national championship winners, Final Four teams.
Every guard I played against in the ACC, I ended up playing against them in the pros.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, that's how.
Wow.
You know, so it was
Think
like
about that.
I wouldn't have traded those years for. I mean, it was so much fun, and I mean, it was great. You know, great talent. You know, and preparation. You know, to come play at the next level, and I think a lot of these guys are missing out on some of that.
Mark, we know you got to keep doing the rotation. Thank you for stopping by. It's great to see you.
Yeah,
welcome. Thanks for coming back here to Cleveland. It's good to see you, Mark.
Always fun.
Thank you.
Mark Price, Cavaliers legend, one of the presenters tonight at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. I'll grab that for you.
That's always so cool for me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely.
This is like we grew up. I grew up.
Yeah,
that's always cool.
I mean, he really, yeah. Speaking of
keep it going, Cavaliers.
We'll stay with the Cavaliers.
Absolutely.
Oh, Booby, it's good to see you.
Caught up
Welcome
with him
home,
earlier.
my friend.
Great to see him again.
Sir, I am home.
Yeah,
good to see you again, Booby.
Do you still feel like
I
feel
do.
home? I mean, because we view you as one of ours.
I do. I mean, I literally walk. It's so special here. I literally walked down the street today, and like you would think that the game just happened, that the game 6 yesterday. You know, they still show love, and that's the main reason. I was telling him earlier, that's the main reason why I'm here. It's because that love and that connection is real, and I want to make sure that I do everything I can to give back to it. I'm doing I got camps coming up out here. I'm doing some stuff with Fox Sports Ohio. I'm giving back to the season ticket holders. I just want the fans to know, as much as they love me, the feeling is mutual.
Oh,
it is pretty amazing when you think that Cleveland, even from early on, but as soon as you got going with that playoff run,
yes,
they embraced you as like their son. I mean,
it was like I could do no wrong. But I really think when I was talking to my father about it, I really think it's because, you know, being that second round pick and not really getting minutes and not really getting an opportunity, and then finally getting on the court and then them seeing you, and I'm 6'2", and everybody else is 7 feet. And,
right.
You know, so it just looks like, you know, he's accomplishing something so amazing, and so I think that they just connected with the fact that I worked hard that whole year.
It's that blue collar mentality, with that hard working,
sir.
And just you were in a zone like nobody had ever seen before in that building. I mean, it had been so long since any Cleveland team had played for a championship. Had any Cleveland team had a moment like that.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden it's like, Booby, I mean,
I have been working for it up until that point, and that series was kind of leaning that way because every game, the Pistons got closer and closer to LeBron, and then that game 5 in Detroit, he exploded. I think he scored like 29
straight,
29 straight
the night before, and he comes over to me and he's like, "Yo, be ready to shoot, be ready to shoot," and he's always told me.
When did he do this? Before the game?
Before the game.
Wow.
He's always told me that, but it was something about that game that I knew based on what had just happened the night before that there were going to be shots available. And I think early on, like I got fouled on like a jumper, and then I hit like a floater, and then from there, when I get the mid-range, that three just starts to look like wide open.
Right. I mean, the basket was like 20. And there was, I think you guys were up like 7, and you made one, and I can remember where I was with a whole group of people. I didn't even have to go in. I knew when it was just the way. I mean, you were in the zone.
I didn't even have to look at.
Right,
that
you
point.
just knew it was going in.
I believe the switch flipped. I think the score was like we were down. I believe it was like 66 to 68, and I hit a 3 in the corner. And when we took the lead,
you took the lead by a point.
The fans started to get behind us, and then I think I came back and hit another one, and they might have called a timeout, or it was after I hit another. I'm not sure, but that was when the switch flipped. And if you go back and look at that footage, Brun, that's another moment where Brun walks up to me and was like, anytime you get the ball, he's doing this whole thing like this. He's like, anytime you get the ball, you shoot it. And when a guy like that tells you to just green light it, your confidence goes through the roof.
I was talking with Boobie earlier for 3 News on TV. It's amazing that LeBron has been doing it at this level for this long.
Yeah.
Is it amazing to you that at his age? I mean, he's been playing for a long time.
It's amazing to see it, but when I was trying to earn a spot on a roster, I was trying to beat everybody to the gym and be the last one to leave, and I would be in competition with him. And that tells you right there why he's been able to sustain it for so long. Like, I would try to get to the gym as early as I could, and he'd still be there before me. And to be the greatest player in the world at that time already, it tells you mentally like where he was and what he was trying to accomplish.
Is that the best advice you could give to a young player starting in the NBA, to have that kind of commitment that I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself physically, skill-wise ready to play in the NBA?
It's to me the only way to be successful in the NBA is you have to outwork the hardest worker. That's my rule.
Wow.
You have to outwork the hardest worker. If you're coming into the league and you want to be successful and you want to grow, iron sharpens iron. So everybody at this level can play. So the difference is, the thing that'll set you apart is how hard are you willing to work on your skill set. And that's what I felt like kept me in the league as long as it did, and allowed me to, do the things that I did. Competing with Brun, trying to get there before him that year and years after that. That's why after that point he would always tell me to just come with him and be his shooting buddy, because he knew how dedicated I was to shooting as well.
You still keep up with the NBA game, college game?
Absolutely.
Do you do?
I'm a basketball junkie.
I figured that.
I really can't live without it. Even without playing, when I decided that my foot and my legs wouldn't allow me to do what I wanted to do anymore, the love didn't go anywhere. I still find time to get shots up. I could possibly this summer playing a big 3 just because the love is still there.
Do you like that? Do you like that idea?
I like the idea solely just for the love of the game. Solely for the love of the game. It's an opportunity to play. The fans can still see you, and they play one time a week. You wouldn't have to do the 4
Get the legs getting refreshed a little bit.
Because for me, once I got, a lot of people ask, like, why did I stop? They thought it was to go and do music, but when I stopped playing ball, like, we would travel into another city and land, and my foot would be swole, and then to try to perform at a level that you want to, maybe on the third of that back-to-back set, just wasn't working out for me. And so I had to really look inside and say, okay, it might be time for you to do something else, because all athletes, we assume that we're going to play basketball until we're 90.
Yeah. Wow.
Until something happens.
Well, you look like you could still go out there and play right now.
He does. He does.
Boobie, it's good to see you.
Boobie,
welcome home. Great to have you here.
Welcome home. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Great to be home, and I'm looking forward to being here a lot more.
Daniel Boobie Gibson, Cavaliers legend, stopping by here for a few minutes at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards, one of tonight's presenters. And it is not just for the Game 6. He had a terrific Cavs career, but talk about moments in Cleveland, moments that we'll always remember. That night,
That's right.
That night at what is now Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
Well, I thank you guys. And like I said at the top of this, the love that the fans and all you guys show me is mutual, man. I wouldn't have anything that I have now without you guys. So thank you.
Thank
Good luck to you.
Good luck. Good to see Daniel Boobie Gibson popping by here at the Sports
Awards. The first thing you think of is Game 6. I mean,
Game 6.
It's just amazing. 6. I'll never forget that. I mean, you talk about the heat check. That was one of the original heat checks there.
All right. Do we have a Kevin Stefanski report from Mr.
We've got some more guests, and then I'll come.
Okay.
Is everything okay? Is he still the head coach?
Is he still the head coach? Okay. Ben Axelrod will rejoin us in a couple of minutes, but we have our college Athletes of the Year.
Awesome.
Here at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. To my near left, Naz Hillman from the University of Michigan, from Gilmore Academy, and Jordan James. You all right there, Jordan?
That work out?
Oh, yeah, I got it. There you go.
Right there.
Congratulations to both of you. Nancy, you're the first ones that sit down here, so we'll talk to you. Going from high school to college and being, learning to play in the Big Ten and everything, you adjusted pretty quickly and became the freshman of the year.
Yeah, I think that I had to adjust quickly. I mean, if I really wanted the opportunity that I was looking for when I got to Michigan, I had to adjust quickly and just get ready for anything that coach threw at me or other teams threw at me. And I think that my teammates and coaches did a great job of helping me adjust to the culture of the Big Ten. I mean, it's a great conference, and every night it's a battle. And I really do think that my coaches and teammates put me in a great position last year and this year.
For both of you, what's this like tonight? I mean, to be honored with, you've got the Browns, the Cavs, the Indians are here. Yeah. You've got so many great athletes under one roof. What's this experience been like?
It's freaking amazing. Like, I'm lost for words with all this. This is everything. Just seeing all these people. I met Stipe. I looked up to Stipe,
Former wrestler, Stipe.
Yeah, former wrestler. Like, seeing all these people from the Cavs, the Browns, it's just amazing, it really is.
Have you had to pinch yourself at all and kind of say, man, this is pretty special?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up as a Cleveland girl, I've looked up to so many of these people, and to be able to be in the same room as them just means a ton. And, I mean, winning this award amongst them, I know how many great athletes were in my category, and I know how many different people could have been chosen, and I was the one that came out on top, and it means the world knowing how great Cleveland athletics are. So.
Who were your biggest influences, in terms of just maybe as an athlete, but just growing up as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, one of my role models that I like to look up to is I like Will Smith a lot. Mm-hmm. Will Smith was one huge one. Was as far as athlete, I don't know. I had a lot of people I really.
No wrestlers come to mind. No, none of the.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say like wrestlers because well, my big brother for sure.
There you
go. My big bro, yeah. That's one guy I definitely look up to all the time. Whenever I need wisdom. Whenever I needed something, he was always there, so I always looked up to him and respected him for that. So,
yeah. For me, not as much as my dad was an athlete, but he's always been in my ear, been a very big source of confidence for me, always being there for me. You won't always see him as the loudest person in the stands, but when we're home, he's always talking my game and what's in my mental space. So he's been a huge help and a great support system for me.
How about biggest difference? Because there could be some kids watching, the athletes that are.
Sure.
What was the biggest difference going from high school to, not only Division I, but in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things might actually be off the court.
Really?
Just the time management and figuring that out.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to have 3 classes a day, but you still have a lift and practice, and you have to figure out how to get your homework done, get extra hours in. If you want to have a social life, you have to sneak that in there. So really managing your time and being at the top of your grind with that, because, you can't be a student athlete if you don't get your academics done, So you can't just leave it out on the court or the field or the mats, and really focusing in on that aspect of getting everything done that you need.
Jordan, you still pinch yourself when you're referred to as a national champion?
Yes, I do. Oh, man, I came so far, man. I remember being that guy who was barely starting, back in high school, 93 pounds as a freshman. I was underweight for the weight class for a whole year. Then I had to gain 20 pounds. Eating all those potatoes and oatmeal just to get up to 106.
We have that problem, too.
Exactly right.
Yeah, but it's just great.
Yeah. By the way, the program, too, that you've come from, they've really built themselves up now to be, I remember in thinking of that division, I used to think of John Carroll and things like that, but you guys have really grown well with it. Is it the coaching staff? I got to imagine a big part of that. Yeah,
we got an amazing coaching staff. Coach Malave, one of my high school coaches that I had actually went to Mount Union as well, which was great for me. Coach Thomas, Coach Spielman, Coach Coleman, we have a great coaching staff. The team is a family. That's one thing we preach all the time. The team is a family. We do everything together. We eat together, everything together. We study together. So it's just the culture, so.
How are the Wolverines faring here thus far as you guys make your way here through this Big Ten stretch?
Yeah, Big Ten is tough, like I just mentioned, and we had a couple of games skip, but now we're working our way back up to the top. We definitely want to get to the top of the conference before the tournament starts, but we're really confident right now going into our next couple of games, really focusing on ourselves and really been locking in to being the best Michigan team that we can be.
That's good. We didn't even have to mention Ohio State. I like it.
No, I know exactly.
I like it.
Well, congratulations to both of you. I mean, you're talking to the two people who won the high school athlete of the year and saying, carry the torch for Cleveland and for Northeast Ohio at the next level. You guys are doing that, and I think that's tremendous. Mm-hmm. That's tremendous. So, continued success here through your seasons.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, good luck. That's always fun. I mean, that's always, and it's cool to see. You have local kids that go on and do it at the next level. I mean, look, you have Gilmore going to not only to Division I, but I mean to the Big Ten
to Michigan. The Big Ten to a nationally ranked program.
Bingo.
And then from Bedford, and I mean I love Jordan's story. He's like 93 pounds, I couldn't even make weight.
Isn't that crazy?
And now a national champion in Division III at 133 pounds.
It's funny. Because I see clips of him and stuff like that. It looks so much bigger when he's on the mat.
Right.
Over here, it's like, wow, it's a pretty shorter. It's like a smaller guy. It's a typical wrestler, but great to see him, and good luck to both of them. That's
Absolutely.
Really cool.
Probably our next interview is going to be the winner of the Courage Award, which was presented
great.
by our friend and colleague Jay Crawford. Skyler Skarnecchia.
Yeah, give people maybe a little bit of the background, just so they know who's going to be coming on.
She comes over to talk to us. She's an 8th grader from Champion Township, Ohio, and I can't say I know exactly where that is, but about 5 years ago, she was treated for what doctors thought was plantar fasciitis of the foot.
Yep.
What it turned out to be a form of sarcoma or a soft tissue cancer, and it ended up where she had to have her right leg amputated below her knee. And all of a sudden now, over these last couple of years,
it's been incredible.
She's in, first things first, the best news is she's in remission.
Yes.
But she's been able to go back to playing athletics, playing soccer, and playing basketball. I mean,
truly. I mean, you think of this award, the special, people that we meet. That is it to a textbook. I mean, it's an incredible honor, so deserved, and great to see her back competing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's she says a quote here: "Fighting for my life motivated me to inspire others and to tell them I've survived." And she's got an Instagram account, I am Skyler Strong, to raise awareness for childhood cancer and also that there is life after amputation.
That's right.
And it's one thing to go through what she's went through, but
there we go.
To be an advocate like she's been doing is pretty special.
Speaking of,
Skyler joins us now. I think
we were giving people the background on you before you sat down, but it's great to have you here.
First thing, I think along with Stipe, you're the best dressed of the night.
Yes,
no doubt.
I would say that.
Yes.
He had the suit going, beautiful dress.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But congratulations on winning the Courage Award and the work you're doing and advocacy. I mean, it's one thing you've been able to to be in remission and go back to playing sports, but you're using your Instagram and your story to help others. Can you talk about that?
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I kind of just wanted to have an impact on the world in some way, shape, or form. And this happening to me, I know it's a horrible thing, but it gave me a lot of opportunities to inspire others.
I'm sure you hear, Dino mentioned the Instagram. I'm sure you hear from people that if it's not going through something similar, it's you providing optimism and strength for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yes.
You hear from, do you hear from people through social media and things like that?
I really do, and it really humbles me that I can impact people's lives.
Yeah.
But you're back. First things first, as we found out here, as we're kind of reading you found out last year you've remission. You're 32 months in remission. You found out last year, so we're continuing to increase that. But I mean, you're back to being able to play sports and play travel sports.
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite? First thing.
Oh boy,
Dino, the toughest question of the night. Favorite sport.
I know. Well, they all have their specialties to each one.
There you go.
It's really any season I'm in.
Right.
So, but yeah, all of them.
And I got to imagine going through everything you've gone through, adding, to be replaying sports again and doing that stuff. This part of it has to be the fun part, the easy part, based on what you've done. Was this always a goal of yours that you had kept in mind, though?
Yes, it definitely has been. What made me have the motivation to push through cancer was to get back on the basketball court and play sports again.
Wow.
So sports has been a part of my life ever since 2nd grade, basketball. And then I knew I was going to have to take a break, but I wanted to be back out on the court playing.
Breaks over. Now here's a great story. Now, there's a pelican that's named after you at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium down in
what's this?
In Clearwater. You have a there's a pelican named Skyler that's named after you down in Clearwater. Have you seen Skyler the pelican up close?
I haven't been. I haven't seen her yet, but my goal is to be in Florida and see her. So.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And I was going to say, moving forward, as you get into high school and things like that, what are the goals? I know someone like you is goal driven, and that's why you are where you are now.
Well, playing all the same sports that I'm playing, obviously. And I just want to be out there because I know as I get older, I can have little kids look up to me that have the same situation as me, and be like, she can do it, I can too.
Absolutely. That's great. Absolutely. Well, you are the personification of courage, and that's what the Cleveland Clinic Sports Health Courage Award is all about. Congratulations. It's so well earned, and continued success. Again, follow her on Instagram at I am Skyler Strong. Learn more about it. See the work that you're doing, and
she's going to get the WKYC Dino bump here on
That's
that.
right.
I like that. That's good. That's good.
Congratulations on winning the award. Thanks for stopping by. It's great to meat you.
Congrats. Good seeing you.
All right, our Courage Award winner here at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards, and I love that. That was my favorite. That was my favorite part of the story. Was that the Clearwater Marine Aquarium?
Yeah, I like that.
I guess the pelican had a leg, as I said, it was injured. So, inspired. Because it's all about the inspiration, inspired by her story, named a pelican.
And to me, you can have all the new head coaches and you can have the pro athletes, and it was great catching up with Stipe. That right there is what an event like this is all about.
Yes.
I mean, it truly is. It's great to see. I think it's great to see the pro athletes, and the Dolan family got honored and everything else, too. We're seeing the new head coach here, Kevin Stefan. But to see that story and to talk to that girl, I mean, that to me, that's what this type of night is all about.
We'll remember that. I mean, Skyler came in just smiling away, and everybody has gone through some kind of a crisis like that in their lives or health, but it's how you deal with it and how you choose, to take it and run with it. And I mean, she is going to be an advocate, all her life. You 100%. Can just tell. And that's what you take from that. It's like, wow.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
It was
you
cool
had
to
some
see
great
her,
questions, and it was good to see her.
And her family, just to see how excited her family was. I mean, that was the other thing too.
She's hit, 2 radio stations? She hit us here on the digital side of it, and that is cool that you can go through that whole process, too. It's great to see.
Yeah, we're really kind of the last 30 minutes or so of the sports awards. They're handing out, I believe, right now.
Most of the winners.
Yeah, most of the winners have stopped by. I think
and a lot of the presenters have stopped by, too.
The moment, I think really all that's left, I think, is like the moment of the year, which I think hint is going to revolve around Major League Baseball's All-Star Game, as we mentioned at the top. It's been, but I'm just chomping at the bit for Ben Axelrod to get back over here because I'm dying to know kind of what Kevin Stefanski
did that happen? Did they do that?
I believe so.
So that's been done.
I believe
so. Maybe he's writing a story
right now. Yeah, he might be. So that might be. I'm trying to see if on Twitter if I missed anything.
If you start seeing the direct quotes from it, then we know he talked, right?
Yeah, but it's interesting, Nick, because that's what this night is all about. It's courage, and looking at a guy like Stipe, who's over to our left. We just had him over here a few minutes ago, and if you think about he had. Everybody had ruled him like he's done. He's done. He's never going to beat Cormier. I think we're going to have a baseball legend here.
Oh,
Hoynes!
This will be good. This will be good.
Oh, let's talk some Indians baseball here. Let's get Paul Hoynes up here with this.
Joined by a Hall of Famer. This is
Hall of
fantastic
Famer
right here. Not to mention the Hall of Fame voting that came out yesterday. The results that came out.
Now we asked Maniloff. We'll ask you. You weren't the one on the Jeter vote, were you, Paul?
No, as soon as I found out that one guy had left him off the ballot, I broke out into a cold sweat.
Make sure it wasn't right.
Make sure I went back and checked my ballots. It wasn't me. I did not want to be crucified.
Oh man! And then having to explain that. Well, I just accidentally left it. I meant to put him on.
Forgot.
Yeah, you're talking to a guy who already lost a ballot like 5 years ago. So anything, I am capable of anything.
Hoynes, what do you make of Omar? It seemed like he did pick up a considerable amount of ground when you think about it, right? I mean, he did pretty well yesterday.
Yeah, I think he's positioned great, perfectly.
Oh.
I think he could get in the next 2 or 3 years. This is a guy that went from 38% to 42%. Now he's at 53%, and he's still got 7 years of eligibility left. So I think he's on a great track. I really feel positive.
It lines up for him.
Yeah,
I think the trend is kind of.
And if you look at the next two classes, they're not really a dominant. They're not really filled with dominant players like no doubters, no doubt Hall of Famers, and that's going to help him too.
When some of your fellow members of the Writers Association, might say, "Well, geez, Omar, Hall of Famer. What's your if you had to make your case, like in a minute or less, but how do you justify him as a Hall of Famer to people who growing up watching him every day, covering him every day like you did?"
Well, that's what I tell them. I've covered the Indians for 37 years, and I covered Vizquel almost for 11 years. I've watched almost every game that he played, and he was the best defensive shortstop I've ever seen. Some people hold his longevity against him. He played almost a quarter of a century at the toughest position on the field. He was playing when he was 42, 43, 44 years old, and some people say he accumulated numbers because of that. Like counting numbers, but you also have to be a pretty good athlete. You have to be a very good player to play that deep.
He took care of himself,
right.
yeah.
And,
right.
I mean, they don't give big league jobs out just because you're a nice guy and you have a good smile.
I was surprised, and Hoynes, you could talk about this more than I can. I was surprised as his career went on. Remember, he was finishing up with the White Sox, and the Blue Jays were in there a little bit.
Well, the Giants.
He was still playing at a very high level, I thought.
But 2 more Gold Gloves after he left Cleveland, right?
When he left Cleveland, he went to the Giants. He was still at his peak.
Yeah, he was still playing well.
And he won 2 Gold Gloves there to give him 11 for his career.
But I'm saying, like, when he was way past his prime, I mean, he was still as solid as it could be.
And a lot of times teams would bring him in if they had a young shortstop to mentor the guy. Texas did that. They did that, in Toronto, I believe, and but he ended up playing a lot too.
Yeah.
He just had, and he kind of reinvented the position to me. I mean, shortstop has changed now. The last 5-6 years with all the shifts. Omar was playing 90 feet.
Yeah.
He was playing between second and third. They didn't shift as much as they do now. So his range and his athletic ability really came into play.
Tonight there are a number of Indians being honored. Let's start first with the ownership and the Dolan family getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah, it's been a 20-year ownership of the franchise, and when you especially consider other franchises in this town, there's been stability, and certainly in the decade of the 2010s, especially when Terry Francona came to town, there's been excellence.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Dolans take heat, for breaking up the team, that great 90s team, and maybe not spending, having the biggest payroll in baseball, but they've been consistent. They've hired good people. They've hired the right baseball people. They've gotten out of the way and let the baseball people run the franchise. And when they've had a chance, and they've always done something. These last 7 years, especially the last 4 or 5 years, at mid-season to keep the window open. You get Andrew Miller, you get, they make deals at the deadline. You get Puig and Franmil Reyes last year, and to give you a push, to give this team a push, to get them into the postseason for a long run. I think there's something to be said for consistency, stability, and strong leadership. I think if bad leadership, they said it rolls downhill. Everything, and I think good leadership does the same.
It's a great point, and I think about what they've done in the community too. I mean, that goes without saying.
Right.
I mean, it's
and this is a team. Everybody's all. You always hear little rumors. Oh, they're going to sell the team, or the team is moving. This is the Dolan family has been in Cleveland for probably 100 years.
Yeah.
They're not going to move the team, and if someday the team is sold, I think they're going to do what Dick Jacobs did.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to find good stewards that are Cleveland based, that are not going to move. One of the original American League teams. They've been playing baseball in Cleveland since 1901. This is this family has owned the team longer than any ownership in that time period of the team.
He's Paul Hoynes of the Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer Indians beat writer joining us. And looking back in the they're handing out the moment of the year, and it all kind of revolves around the All-Star game and Carlos Carrasco. You've covered All-Star games here in Cleveland and in other places. How memorable was that whole experience for you and all the years you've followed baseball and followed the Indians?
I think that was the greatest. That was really a cool moment. At every All-Star game they have the stand up to cancer moment. But I did not see that coming. I did not see.
That was cool.
I did not see Carrasco coming down and standing with his 5 or 6 All-Star teammates, and it blew me away. I was like speechless. I just didn't know what to think. It was just one of those moments, and just the whole crowd, I think, seemed to sense that. You saw Santana put his arm around Carrasco, and Lindor was there, and Francona, and Brad Hand, and they all cared so much about him, and you could really feel that, and it came through. And then you had Bieber winning the MVP, striking out the side in order, and the crowd chanting Bieber. That was, I thought, sometimes at an All-Star game, there's so many out-of-town fans that you lose the hometown flavor of it, But that sounded like a Cleveland.
You could feel it.
Cleveland team to me, a Cleveland crowd to me, and it was just a great moment.
And then one of the last things for going into 2020 now with this Tribe Club, we know the White Sox have spent a boatload of money. The Twins are the defending champs. They bring back a lot of pieces, and the Indians are right there. It seems. I mean, do you handicap this as a 3-team race, Paul? How do you view this thing?
Yeah, I think it's very much a 3-team race, and I think the Indians, they've cut over $40 million off the payroll from 2 years ago when it was a franchise record, $135 million. I think there's a lot of pressure on this front office, on the coaching staff, and Francona. They almost have to be perfect when they have to thread the needle. Again, they won 93 games last year, and it wasn't enough to get into the postseason. But like you said, Nick, I mean, the White Sox have spent over $200 million.
Feels like $2 billion.
Yeah, right.
The Twins just signed Josh Donaldson. They brought back Odorizzi. They've got they've got 3 good pitchers, and Pineda they brought back. Pineda's still serving the suspension.
Yeah.
So, but they got their 3 horses with Barrios and Odorizzi and Pineda. They brought in Rich Hill, who's hurt, and Homer Bailey. But in that lineup, I mean, they hit 307 home runs last year, and they got Donaldson, who hit over 30, with the Braves. So that is going to be a handful.
Think the Indians are done with this roster, or at some point are they? I mean, whether it's Puig or whether it's another outfielder, maybe before we get into spring training.
I don't know.
Roll the dice.
I have my doubts. I think I think there's room to add. There's room to add a reliever. There's room to add an outfielder, but will they do it? I don't know. I mean, if Puig is out there at the end of February, into March and he's looking for a 1-year deal,
And we talked about that. Sometimes to their advantage, that market seems to crater sometimes, and it seemed like the Indians could take advantage of that maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they always have. But the weird thing is, they always they bring like 20, non-roster free agents to camp. And they brought the, that's, I think they're still bringing that number, but they're all coming from the minor leagues. There's none of their minor league system.
True, right.
There's not guys like Ryan Rayburn, or guys like where you catch lightning in a bottle. A veteran guy. So far they haven't signed those guys, and they've had great luck with those guys. Scott Atchison and guys like that.
Yeah. And they still, but that's one thing with the Indians. They for a long time they never had enough. There was never enough starting pitching. They had a great offense. And now, I mean, you can trade Corey Kluber, but you still have a pretty formidable starting rotation.
Yeah, they still have the best starting pitching in the division, maybe in the American League. No matter who's the tip of the spear, Bieber or Clevenger. Then you've got the two young guys, Plesac and Savali, and you've got I'm missing Carrasco.
Yeah.
Carrasco, if he comes back from the leukemia, it's a formidable rotation, and they got younger guys below that too.
37 years on the beat.
37 years. Nobody does it better.
Still haven't gotten over that. Hoynes, good to see you.
Hoynes, good to see you.
To get over it.
Paul Hoynes, Indians beat writer for Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, nice enough to stop by and talk some Tribe here with us. And just filed now. Hoynesy.
Careful, Hoynesy.
Sorry about that.
You got to make it to spring training.
Yeah, seriously. If we had put Hoynesy on the DL, oh my goodness. We would have never heard the end of it. Just filed now at WKYC.com from Mr. Ben Axelrod. Kevin Stefanski.
Good to see you, Pat. How are you?
Football Russo.
We're
Pat
doing
McMahon
a show
over
right
here.
now.
Yes.
We're on right now.
Kevin Stefanski says he'll meet with Odell Beckham Jr. discuss behavior at the LSU title game.
Wait, what?
That is written by.
This is why we need Ben here.
One Mr. Ben Axelrod, who after writing and
we
frantically.
can see this now online.
Yes, it's right there.
There
right
we go.
there.
It is right there. That's what I wrote.
Oh, is it perfect?
Yeah.
So what's up?
So he was asked about Odell Beckham Jr. and his behavior.
This is Stefanski.
Yes,
Okay.
Kevin Stefanski, the Browns' new head coach. And he said, I haven't talked to Odell personally, but I'm looking forward to meeting with him face-to-face. We're going to meet face-to-face tomorrow, actually, on Thursday, and we'll go over our expectations for personal conduct. And he was pressed then, specifically about his behavior at the national title game and handing out the money to the players. And he said, again, we'll meet tomorrow and discuss that and discuss our standard for the players. So that's not, the whole meeting's not about the LSU thing. This meeting isn't because the LSU stuff happened, but I thought it was notable that it is going to be discussed. And it's not, you could see a scenario where another head coach would say that's Odell on his personal time. He's not in trouble with the law, but the fact that Kevin Stefanski said this is something he's going to discuss with him, I thought was notable.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's what else? Anything else coming? There's a barrage of questions, right?
Yeah, a lot about just what the searches that are still going on. He was asked about George Payton and basically said we're going to take our time, but. I like George. I know George. He was asked if he's going to hire an offensive coordinator, and he was non-committal about it. He kind of said, we're going through, all the possibilities and all the different groupings. I'm not saying we won't hire an offensive coordinator, but, read between the lines and the fact that there hasn't been anyone notable linked to the job from the offensive coordinator standpoint. I would say that's probably the way they're leaning.
Interesting.
Which is interesting.
I mean, I think that if there was one thing that really hurt Freddie Kitchens last year, it was the fact that he was, calling his own plays and he was trying to do too much and the game was going a million miles an hour. Not to say, again, we don't want the sins of Hugh Jackson and Freddie Kitchens, but it's like, man, I thought that there would be somebody to just, hire to do that, and he can call plays himself. I mean, a lot of times with the Kansas City Chiefs, everyone talks about Andy Reid calling plays. Eric Bieniemy has a huge part in that, too.
Yeah, there are certainly head coaches who call plays and have been successful at it. And I think the counter argument is why would you want to take away what we think this guy does best?
Right.
What we hired him for. But Again, we hate to hold him to the standard of Freddie Kitchens because that's not very fair. But we saw with Freddie especially how much goes into being a head coach beyond calling plays and all the other stuff you have to account for. And I know they hired Bill Callahan, and he's an experienced coach. But other than that, it's looking like this is going to be a pretty young staff and not a whole lot of experience. Otherwise, Joe Woods has been a coordinator here and there, but maybe never on this magnitude. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Interesting.
I was wondering if at some point we might hear that like Norv Turner was going to be an offensive, or Gary Kubiak would be like, not a coordinator but an advisor or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's still possible. But I with you, I think the alignment, if you will, shapes up for a younger staff.
Yeah.
I just think that's
and that's the way it's going.
Yeah. So
we've hit a lot of things tonight here,
yeah,
and with Ben coming up. Yeah, I do think we are right. I think
it's about it. Yeah, as we said, the last award of the night, the memorable moment of the year went to the Cleveland Indians and Carlos Carrasco and the 2019 All-Star game.
He's not here tonight.
And,
he's not. No.
But that was the moment of the year, and it's gonna be hard to top that. For a non-championship moment, that was pretty spectacular. Even Paul Hoynes was like, that was awesome.
Yeah,
I
he's seen a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny because you look back just big picture at 2019 and it feels like kind of a disappointing sports year. The Browns don't live up to expectations. The Indians missed the playoffs. The Cavs are in the first year of a multi-year rebuild. And you forget the All-Star game was last year and how heavily the Indians were involved with that. I know it feels like 2 decades ago. That Browns-Titans opener feels like 3 decades ago, and that was a few months before that. But
had to bring that up.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah. All the award winners and stories are now at WKYC.com. Ben's story from Kevin Stefanski at WKYC.com. Plus, we've got photos, sights, and sounds, everything you needed to know. If you're watching us throughout the night, if you feel like you maybe missed something, go to the website. It's there, and your full coverage of the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards.
We're all over it. WKYC.com.
All right. Fellas,
it's been fun.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll do it again next year.
We'll do it again. No, we'll do it again next year.
Hopefully without a new Browns.
Yes, please. Yes. So we thank our great crew here: Randy White, Brian Crane. Yes, Crane. We even thanked you. Yeah, Stephanie Metzger, and of course our fearless leader Denise Pulverine, and we thank all of you for watching. Again, the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards, full coverage at WKYC.com. For Nick Camino and for Ben Axelrod, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and have a great night.